It'd be so funny if I sent you later a shirt that said "Baby Newer thought I was cute." That you could like wear around for some time.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Well, I have a witness. My partner actually saw it happen, so it was pretty
Now,
funny.
if you were to get a shirt that said "BB Newirth thought I was cute," would you actually wear it?
Would I wear it? Okay, sure. If you take the time to have it made, I'll wear it for you.
It's time for Gavin Doodle.
Hello. Slow and steady wins the race with that hello there. Hello, everybody. It's a Thursday night, which means Gavin Doodle. We are feeling awake tonight, alive tonight. We are going to be joined by a special guest here in just a few minutes. I'm going to put in our standard Ask Us Anything in the comments. Let me put that in. Anything. I have to spell it out every time. And post. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin that. So again, if you have comments or anything of the sort, you post it or you put them in the comments for us, and I will try to ask them as we go along. I will admit sometimes I get so wrapped up that I don't always ask the question, so please bear with me. And you can always post it again, and hopefully I'll see it in that second instance. Let me make sure I get my live feed up here. Hopefully we have good internet tonight. Sometimes we don't, but we will try to work through it the best we can. Tonight we have on a person that I've known about for quite some time because I personally know and have met and sort of got started in this career because of the author of some of these books. I went to SCBWI conference, and Josh Funk, who authored some of the books that we're going to be talking about tonight, was there and sort of helped, I don't want to say direct me, but he answered some questions for me that made some real helpful decisions for me moving into this career. But the person that illustrated those books is Edwardian Taylor, who did stuff like It's Not the Three Little Pigs, and It's Not Hansel and Gretel, and It's Not Little Red Riding Hood. I'm trying to remember. There's one other one that I am drawing a blank on right now, and I'm sure he's gonna get real angry at me for not remembering. I know there's a fourth one. I'm looking to see what it is, and it is It's Not Jack and the Beanstalk. There we go. I don't know why that was so hard to remember. We also have Hey, You're Not Santa. There's lots of surprises in these books, and he's, I believe, joining us from Texas tonight. So let me let him in. So I'm going to do a little invite. You just need to, it might be in your notifications. It might be up front that says, hey, you're invited to join. There we are.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. Okay, so tell me, because I always forget. How does it show up? Did it show up like on your screen saying you have a notification?
Yeah. As soon as you said that, it popped up.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. I was like, wait, what notification?
I don't like, I think I've done it once where I'm the one joining after the fact,
Yeah.
and I just like totally forget every single time. But thank you for joining us.
Hi. It's so I'm so used to watching it, so it's weird being on this side. So it's pretty cool. Thanks.
Well, thank you for watching it, first of all. But yeah, you've been in our library, in our our personal library, etc., for a long time because of I found you because of knowing the author Josh Funk,
Yeah, Josh
who
is
is
awesome.
he's a known entity in this area and is like super supportive of kidlit, and so he sort of helped me when I was trying to decide to shift gears. And so I think right when I met him may have been when or shortly thereafter was Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh, that was a while ago.
Yeah. I don't know. When did that one come out? That was
Oh gosh, I can't remember. It's been a long time. It might have been like 7 years ago, maybe 8, maybe. It's
yeah,
been
I
a
was gonna
while.
say, I met him maybe about like 10 years ago or something of the sort, and I knew him, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to check out all of his books. And then you popped up in my radar, and I was like, ooh. And so we've been following along since. And I know quite a bit about you, but I do want you in just a second
Okay.
to relay. I'm going to give you the heads up now so you can plan in your head.
Okay.
Tell people about you, but I want to stress at the beginning, internet can be challenging every night. If we have to adjust, we'll adjust. I know you're down in Texas, right?
Yeah, I'm in the Dallas, North Texas
Oh,
area.
you are. My brother's in that area too.
Oh, I'm
Are you in?
sorry.
Are you in like? Are you in Plano?
Close. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
in Little Elm, so
Oh,
that's another suburb above
okay.
Plano. Yep.
I know it. I know it. I've driven through it at least quite a few times. My parents lived down there for a while. And my brother lives down there, so I've been to Little Elm a couple of times. I don't remember for what, but
Yeah.
um, I know I've been there. Is there?
Yeah.
I just remember there was like a bridge that we went under that had a cool like sequential that if you drove at the right speed. No, this was ages ago. But if you
Okay.
drove at the right speed, it would like animate. If you looked just to your side, it would sort of move as you went along.
Yeah, there's been
Um,
a lot of construction since, so I'm sure
yeah,
there's been a lot of changes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same down there of any sort. Um, but if internet goes out, etc., I want to be respectful of your time. So if any point you just say, "Hey, I'm done," don't
Okay.
hesitate. Um,
Passing the timing
yeah,
out here. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I don't know what your schedule is like normally, but I can go long on these nights. You don't have to of any sort. So bear that in mind. And then
Appreciate the warning.
I'll ask you afterwards about sort of what you're making and things of the sort. But why don't you give everybody watching a little synopsis of who you are?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I gave you
So
warning. I gave you warning.
I was like, where do I start at the journey? So originally I had started off in 3D visual effects, so I went to grad school for that. So I did the whole rigmarole. I went to a regular university, got a drawing and painting degree and a psychology degree because I thought I would go into art therapy.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, but before that, I was actually a chemical engineer student. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was getting scholarship money for art, so then, I kind of had to maintain the art stuff to get the art scholarships to keep taking, chemistry classes, and then it just so happened that I think art was probably the
Yeah.
better fit
Yeah.
for me. So graduated with my degrees, and then I was stuck in retail hell for a good 6 years.
Okay.
Climbed up back in the day when Pier 1 Imports was still around. I was already an
Wait,
assistant manager.
is
Yeah.
Pier One's not
No,
around anymore?
not
I haven't.
anymore.
It hasn't been on my radar of any
Yeah,
sort. And
it's
so
been,
like
yeah.
okay. Okay. I worked
But
at
yeah, I was,
Borders back in the day, so
oh
that
yeah.
one's gone too. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, so I worked my way up into management. When I left, I was training to be a regional visual merchandising manager for Pier 1 Imports. And one day I sat in my office and was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep doing this every day and not having anything to look forward to. And so I asked my regional manager, my district manager, I was like, if it would be okay if I went back to school. They said you couldn't be doing the jobs that you're doing now if you're going back to school. And so I was like, okay, well, you just made the decision for me.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we know it's better that if you went ahead and pursued what you really wanted to do. So they were very supportive of it.
Good.
And
Good.
yeah, so then I went to grad school at UTD. They have a program called ATEC. Shout out to ATEC.
Okay.
If any of you are watching. And I went there thinking I was going to work in the gaming industry, and I focused in on 3D visual effects, so I could do, modeling, texturing, lighting, compositing, animation, rigging. I could have done all of that stuff, so I was more of a generalist when I finished school. I ended up teaching after I had graduated with my master's, and then it wasn't until then that I kind of realized that I needed to go back to 2D. And so I had some friends working at Real Effects at the time when they had the internship program. And
Okay.
one of my really good friends, she was dating somebody in the art department. And so I went up there and I would meet them and hang out with them. I got to know the art department, and then, a lot of them knew I could already draw. So it was a matter of just being able to build up a portfolio. And so I started taking online courses at CGMA. And eventually I built up enough work where I could start applying to studios. And then I landed my first studio job in Dallas at a commercial studio. And I kind of started off from there. And I was doing pretty much everything. I was doing storyboarding, character design, environment stuff, all of it. And it was really good because I was able to kind of dabble in a lot of different styles and kind of see where it was that I liked
Yeah, just
working in.
because of the projects being
So
not or you're
diverse.
working on other people's projects
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. And so like I got to work on, photorealism stuff. I got to work on cartoony stuff, stylized stuff, and kind of figure out where it was that I wanted to focus my efforts on. And so, yeah, so it wasn't until they had to downsize that studio and I was left unemployed where the kidlit stuff came in. So I don't know like how other states in the U.S. do it, but in Texas you kind of have to show proof that you're applying to places in order to get unemployment.
Yep.
And so I had applied to every studio I could think of possibly in the state of Texas at that point, and then I had some friends on Facebook who had talked about just recently getting signed on to an agency, and I was like, oh, I'd never considered children's books before. I love children's books, and I actually collected them prior to even considering even becoming a children's book illustrator. And so a lot of it was very similar to like, animation. I'm sure it's
Absolutely.
translates the same. It's to me
It's
like
the
how
story. It's the keyframes. It's the storyboard
yeah,
versus
exactly. It's layout, it's
Yep.
the color, it's all of it. It's the same thing. And so I had enough work that I had made myself personally that I decided to go ahead and start applying at agencies all over.
Yeah.
This is before I found out about like SCBWI, all those kinds of So I was googling like different agencies and all that, finding out where like friends on Facebook that I had made over the years, like where they were getting represented, trying to see and apply to as many as I could. And I cast my net pretty wide. I was applying to like 5 agencies a week for a good 2 months. I wouldn't stop. I was, I'd go through their websites, check to see if I would be a good fit. Check to see.
That's the
What's that?
way you have to do it. That's sort of like you. There's people who go out there and they say like I'm gonna apply to a few, and they apply to like 3, and they don't get anything back, and they're just waiting to hear back.
Many.
No,
Yeah, there are hundreds of agencies out there.
Yeah.
It's like basically hitting the pavement and going and sending your resume if you're going to like store to stores kind of situation. So, I think I applied to over maybe 30, 50 agencies, and like a lot of them didn't reply back, which you kind of expect. I did get hit up by 4. 2 of them actually gave me offers, and then from there I kind of decided to go with the agency that I'm with now at Bright,
which is
Bright
Group.
Yeah.
That's there's is Bright Group also like there's a couple of different Bright ones out there that have Bright in the name, but Bright Group in particular, do they have a UK? Yeah. Okay. That's
at the time. At the time when I applied, they didn't have a U.S. location, so they were based mainly out of the UK.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool because I could say agents are in the UK. I have British agents, so they ended up. They had so many, artists here in the U.S. that they ended up opening their studio in what's it called in Brooklyn? I think they're in now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're definitely from Texas when you say what's it called in Brooklyn, in New York. I was like, that's up here that would be sacrilege to not know the names of
well,
the.
My dad is from New York. He's from Syracuse, so like I have family up there too.
Oh,
so.
okay. So you just shamed your family by.
I'm partly North.
So tell me tonight. We're gonna work, and I know that you work primarily on screen.
Yeah.
And
I
know that
and more affordable.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if it's more affordable.
Well, to me, it's an investment. I'm not constantly buying art supplies or making messes that I have to clean up, and so.
Nowadays, with the subscriptions to all those Adobe products and whatnot, like, I don't know. Okay, but you're gonna be on screen. Are we using Photoshop?
Yes.
Are we using? Okay.
Yep.
And then
also have Maya too. So if you wanted to see like how the process goes for me, I do a lot of my layouts in Maya.
Okay. Wait. What?
So
that threw me.
So a lot of the things that I find when I work on children's books is a lot about camera angles, and so especially if you've got locations that you're going to constantly be reusing, like interior shots. So I like to model out the entire thing. Like
that makes sense.
like proxies, so that way I can kind of choose my camera angles and where I place my camera.
It's
And it gives me a little bit more freedom to figure out things,
it's
especially
the
with
same thing
text.
like storyboarding,
Yeah,
where you want to know your shots and not break the 180 rule and all that fun stuff. And so,
yeah,
okay, that totally makes sense. I was thinking like, I'm assuming you're like just throwing some sketches into Maya to sort of like, here's where a table would go, and here's where
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
like bare
so,
bones,
so
not necessarily you're rendering stuff out in there.
no,
Yeah, okay,
no.
that's that's what I was like. What are you talking
That
about?
would
This
not
doesn't
be
make any sense to me.
that would not be cost
Yes.
effective.
Okay.
Mainly proxies, like nothing like too extreme. You
I
may
think
think it looks extreme, but
if
it's
you
not.
if you want to jump into that, I imagine there's a lot of people that could benefit from that idea. I mean, I'm not a 3D modeling person of any sort, but there have been times in the past where I have, and I know I've asked students quite a few times to make little maquettes
Yeah.
for so they can basically do the exact same thing, like choose their angle, light it so they can see what the lighting would look
Yeah.
like hitting certain surfaces and whatnot. And so, and it could be just cardboard in my case. And,
Yeah.
in your case, I assume it's pretty
Well,
much just...
I still do cardboard sometimes, paper, cardboard, clay. I still use all the tricks in the bag, depending on how fast I need something figured out.
Yeah.
I have all of that stuff ready to go. So
That's smart.
Yeah.
Very, very smart. So
So-
do you know what you're working on tonight?
yeah, so I told you I was gonna do like character poses, but like I thought that was kind of, not too relevant to Kidlit. So I did find last year there was this group doing what's it called, vintage book covers, and they've got one going on currently for 2025. But I had started on 2024's, but I had gotten so busy. I remember I was like back to back working full time and then freelance, so there was like hardly any time for free time to do any artwork. And so I had started on it, but I kind of forgot about it. So then when you were like, what are you going to work on? I was like, oh, I know I probably have stuff in my folders that I just kind of had left sitting. And so I found it, this cover of a little golden book that was going to redo in my own style. So
Cool. No, I'm excited to see. And honestly, if it's not Kidlit on here, I just to see you work and see how your process is so important. And
it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I do the same thing like what I do for video games and for animation stuff. It's literally the same. So
I decided today, I've been trying to figure out, last week I did a folktale piece. And so I've been sort of looking into old folk tales, and I found this one, and I'm sure you probably don't know of it either, but have you ever heard of Feebled-Feebledson?
No.
Exactly.
What kind of folktales are these? Are like Appalachian or?
This one is from Nebraska,
Oh,
that
okay.
area. But I've been trying to look at like European ones, and I want to introduce some of those, but I have to do some deeper dives into hitting some of those and knowing more about them. I've been doing a lot of American tall tales, like that's what I know a lot about. So apparently he's part of that. But I did a little sketch, and
that's cool.
The gist of it is he's a guy who's like Paul Bunyan's like a contemporary. He's big and tall, and he's like whatever. But he would fight and or not fight, but he would try to destroy drought. So it was like all about like the Dust Bowl.
Oh, okay.
And he fought the clouds and made it rain. And this one has he has this cool thing where he gave old moonshine to hoop snakes and put them in circle, made them eat their tails, and then they petrified when they died from the whiskey or moonshine. And so those became bicycle wheels, and apparently he invented the bicycle, is the story. And so it's like this weird, like, what? I've never heard of this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like weird stories about him like tricking the clouds into raining with frogs making noise and like sorts of weird stuff. And so I was like, that's what we're doing tonight. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out.
You gotta share me whatever link you're getting these stories from.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
there's so many of them that people don't know. And then there's these great ones out of like Scandinavia about I forget what their names were, Risen or something like that, and something where like they're giants who were trying to move a mountain, and when the sun came up, they didn't pay attention to the sun had come up, and it turned them into rocks, and those are the rocks that are standing next to this island. And like all these cool like things I just like you get passed over and you go, Paul Bunyan, yeah, and John Henry and some of the classics, but like these were weird ones. I was like, I'm gonna jump into it. Plus the name Feebold, Febold, last name Feboldson.
Oh.
He's Swedish, apparently. I don't know. So we'll make something of that. So why don't we get into our downshoots or into our shot of our workspace? I'm just trying to tack this up so I can work on it. And I have a feed here that runs about 10 seconds late. And so if you show anything where you know, like, hey, I'm going to go grab this thing, I will, it may take me a second to see it, but so I have to ask right away before we really get going here. And you've probably been asked this so many times. But tell me about the first name, Edwardian versus, like, is there a history there?
It is my actual name, but it's my first and middle name combined.
So Edward and Ian. Okay.
It was actually, I credit some of my friends from college when we were making our portfolios. One of my friends was like saying, he was like, "Hey, did you ever think about combining your first and your middle name?" I was like, "Why?" Like, because it makes the word Edwardian, and I was like, "That's stupid."
No, I like it. I thought there was like some cultural, like some, you know, historical thing that I just didn't know about. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta ask.
It is funny too, though. I do like the turn of the century. I do have a thing for like the early 1900s, so that it does go together. But
do you get asked that quite a bit?
Of what my name?
Yeah.
Where I got the name? Yeah, because it is a very unusual name. I think I've seen maybe one or two people who say their name is Edwardian. I doubt that, but you know.
When I was in college, I don't even know when I was in high school, there were lots of Marks at the time. I think it was like one of the most popular names of the year I was born, and so it showed up a lot. And in order to sort of separate myself from the pack, I just started going by the name Hoffman for a long time, just my last name.
Yeah.
To the point where I got to college, at some like orientation thing with our dorm and our RA, they said, "What's your name?" And I said, "It's Hoffman." And so most people didn't know my first name when I was in college, to the point where I had a teacher at one point tell me that I should just change my name to just Hoffman with no last name. like
Madonna.
Yeah, like transfer chair. And I actually considered it. I'm glad I didn't. But I remember telling my parents at one point, like, "Oh, I'm thinking about just changing my name to just Hoffman," and they were upset because I was going to go the legal route and like really go for it, and they were kind of I don't want to say that they were prude about it, but they just, you know, why would I change my name situation? And now I look back and I go, like, if I had dropped my first name and just had a single name, one, like, legal documents.
Yeah, that would be a pain.
Challenging.
Like, I don't even know how you would be able to do your taxes.
Yeah, exactly. They need first and last name and so many things, and then you get rid of it. Okay, I have one question because I didn't know the stuff about Pier 1 imports, but I got to ask you.
Oh, okay.
Because the first thing I think of when I, just so you know, the conversation go wherever. If you want to go in
that's fine. Yeah.
Random direction, just go for it. But when I think of Pier 1 imports, the two things I think of are glass cups with bubbles in them because of like the process of making the glass.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. I think you're thinking about like the Mexican glassware.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then also glass heads.
Oh my, yeah. I remember those.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say something like the Papa Sans or
true.
The scented candles, like the patchouli candles.
The Papa Sans, I remember Papa Sans being the thing that was there. Like, that's where I first learned about them. But those glass heads, like, I think we, somewhere either in our house or my parents' house or something, I feel like it was a thing that everybody kind of had one at one point or another. And I remember like a graduation party, my parents putting like the cap and mortar board on it as a display, like, "Ooh, look, our son graduated, and here's the thing he wore on his head."
Yeah.
But for me, that whenever someone brings up Pier 1 imports, I'm sure they have so many other things or had so many other things, but that's the first thing that pops into my head every time. Okay, I had to get that out of the way before I forgot.
Okay.
So tell me, tell me a little bit about sort of the, I mean, you gave us a little bit of background and history in there, but you had mentioned at one point that you had to go back to 2D, or
Yeah,
that
so
you decided that you needed to go back towards that. And I want to sort of,
well,
this is going to sound very therapy, but like,
no.
I want to
No.
explore that a little.
Yeah, so it was just funny. Like I had gone to school for all of that 3D. I had always been really good at drawing. Like obviously I had a degree in drawing and painting, and that they didn't focus on a lot of that kind of stuff in grad school and in the program itself. I
Okay.
think it's changed a little bit now since I've graduated, but like there wasn't any drawing classes that were required for the course. So a lot of the guys in my program didn't draw or had taken any real art classes. So, I kind of had a leg up over the other people because I did know design principles and I did know, how to paint and how to draw and how to sculpt things. So when I was using the 3D programs, to me it made sense because I already was familiar with how to sculpt something in clay or in, stone.
Yeah.
So it made so much more sense to me. It was just a matter of learning the program and learning that language. So my friends all told me, like in school, like I was always the best artist in school, and so it made sense for me to go back to 2D because I was so strong at it. Um, and I didn't even know at the time like you could even do like concept art or storyboarding until, my friends were they were starting to work at real effects.
The
Didn't think it was possible. So.
it's sort of similar, and this is an argument that I made before, and it's, I think, in that same vein that there's this idea of sort of illustrators who become animators, and that's my ballpark too, wherein I didn't study animation in school, but the fundamentals of like how to design, how to break down a story, things of that sort are not inherently tied to, do you know a program?
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of learning the program and learning the minutia of those situations. And all of a sudden, if you can wrap your head around some of that stuff, then all of a sudden it becomes really easy to jump into some of those careers, even if you have not had that experience. And so that idea of like you coming with some drawing stuff in the background made it probably, thinking about the idea of you jumping into something 3D or into visual effects, and how do you, in being able to understand a shape in your head from drawing it so often that you don't need to have a reference in front of you every single time for it to work out. Was that when you jump back to 2D, was that primarily for still visual effect 2D stuff, or were you thinking more along the lines of like the painting and sort of illustration side of it?
Yeah, it was more for the painting stuff. For like most of it was like painting programs. We used Photoshop a lot in our program, but it was mainly for like textures. So painting textures, not really drawing like vast scenes on your own in 2D.
Yeah. Were you, when you were doing that, were you solely digital at the time, or were you starting out?
No, I was still analog. So I did a lot of, the storyboards I would still do by hand because I was still learning Photoshop. I wasn't that proficient in it at the time either. So I was still doing a lot of things by hand.
Yeah. And then now I assume that besides you mentioning like the idea of every once in a while using cardboard and things of the sort, but I assume that when you sketch, just because of speed and efficiency, that you're going digital. I think the only book I think I ever sketched traditionally was the first book that I did, and it was before I really had the iPad. I'm not good at drawing on Photoshop. That is not my.
Oh, really?
No, I never picked it up. Like, it's part of it is because I didn't have a Cintiq, and so it wasn't a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
It was having to, into us, I had to look at the screen while working with my hand, and in animation, that's what I was doing. But to do the nuances of like textures and things of the sort did not line up well in my head for that. But once the Procreate came around, it's like so much easier just to sketch.
Yeah, I've never tried Procreate or Apple products like that.
You never used Procreate?
No.
What are you for?
Well, Well, I don't have an iPad, so that's
Yeah.
another thing. So, um, I don't know. I'm just so used to working off a Cintiq. Like, it's
I
always been the usual for me.
People who have Cintiqs, I think it's like a no-brainer. There's no need to switch.
Yeah.
If you don't have a Cintiq, that again, that one-to-one is the thing that's so lovely about Procreate. But I will tell you, Procreate has so many things that it doesn't do that Photoshop can, that even if I use Procreate for making, I'm still ending up in Photoshop.
Yeah.
And for, type or layout or various effects of sorts. Plus, I show my students. This is a question that I'm sure you probably use it in some sense, but I was showing my students the other day automate, like batch automate, and we were talking about photo merge. But
Okay.
do you ever batch automate?
No, what's that?
Oh
Batch
man,
automate.
it's
Like
so
when
good.
you're saving out separate files for different layers, or
You can do it that way. So like
okay.
you could actually take different layers and pump it out as individual files, but also like if you have your windows open, you can have there's a window called Actions where it records what you do.
Oh yes, yes,
And
I know about that.
yeah, and then you can have it do that to all the different files in a folder. So like if you have to resize everything, you
Oh,
can have
okay.
it do all the resizing and you don't have to do anything. You just sit back and let it do it. Uh, and I showed it to my students the other day and they were just like floored because of how many times they've had to do something where it's like doing the same thing to every file and it takes hours to go through it all. And like that's something Procreate's never going to be able to manage of any sort. So talk to me a little bit about sort of the kidlit world and jumping into that. I mean, obviously you talked about the getting the agent side of things, but first book offer, what was it like? Was that
It
something that
was,
fell in your lap?
yeah,
How did it happen?
that was actually just like a month after I got signed on. I got my first book deal. And that was Race. It was about a little race car.
Oh yeah,
Um,
okay, another one.
yeah, that was my first one. That was with, oh goodness, totally forgot. It was so long ago. Um,
How long have you been doing this? Or how
over
long have you been
about
doing the kidlit side?
it's
Let's put
about
it that way. And then how long have you
10.
been professionally making?
I've been working in publishing for about almost 10 years
Okay,
now. And then I've been doing um, like animation and video games for over like maybe 10 or 11, 12 years.
okay. So you're
So,
so out of grad school was sort of the start of it, though, right?
yeah,
If I remember
yeah.
correctly.
I was still working on stuff like during grad school. Like my first real professional gig was while I was still in school.
Gotcha.
And I was working on a video game, um, like a little mobile app game.
Was this back in the like early 2010s?
Yes,
Yeah.
like I think 2011, I think was when that game had come out.
I'm wondering just because of like when I think of games and mobile games, that was such a big like turn right in that time frame where everybody was jumping towards mobile as sort of a branch to of game making that they could
Yeah.
lean into of some sort. And so you got that first book. Was that? I mean, you said that it was like so similar, but were there things that shocked you or things that changed your perception as you worked on that book? Sort of like learning about the process, thinking about print versus screen.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of learning in terms of color, because I primarily when I'm drawing in Photoshop, it's in RGB like I'm doing now, but like you have to have it for
Yeah.
CMYK when you're, so there was a lot of issues with colors not matching up, and so I would have to go back and make adjustments so that it was in CMYK. So that was a learning experience,
Was that
not knowing.
meaning that you got like proofs back and realized
Yeah,
that they were?
that's probably the only time I've ever had a book where I had proofs sent to me to check to see how the colors look. Like every other book that I've had prior or after that never had proofs sent. So, which was surprising, but like I didn't have any color problems with the other books since I was working in the proper
Yeah.
mode, I guess.
Did they give you? Well, you also have the do they give you the what's it called, the color profile
Is that
and
the
all that kind of
one? Is that the one with the little color swatches on the
no,
side? And
color profile? Like some people do like 1998 RGB, and some people will do
oh,
like what it's the printing process, like what mode you're actually using beyond just sort of RGB versus CMYK, like
no, I've
how it's
never gotten any of those
okay.
before.
I was gonna say that there are times where I do like postcards or I do business cards and whatnot, and they when you download the template, they tell you like here's the color profile for it that basically tells their printers like how much ink to use for the type of paper they have,
Huh.
uh,
Huh.
and supposedly it makes it better. But I also am working from analog and scanning, so my colors always come out a little funky just in general uh, across the board. But
Yeah,
that's
I could probably see that being a
I've
problem.
never even thought about asking the. Honestly, this is sad because I just realized I've never thought about, even though I'm doing analog, when I scan stuff in, I could actually ask them just like, hey, what's the color profile you're using, and then I can at least try to replicate on my computer.
Hmm.
But I also don't color correct my computer. Do you color correct yours?
No, I don't.
That's
Probably should, but I haven't had any real problems with
yeah.
color.
I mean, your colors are bright and vivid, and like they. Of course, I don't know what the original is, but I assume that, or what you're looking at on screen comparatively. But I imagine that that because you're going from screen to print, it's one less step, and so those colors are probably a little bit more efficient than uh, what I end up having.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of think of like color, at least for illustration, it's more of like in 3D, you put a base color down, and then luckily we have all of these little tools on here to do filters, and you can easily change the tone or value of it um, simply on Photoshop. It's like it saves a lot of time, especially like if you want to do a daytime versus nighttime scene, and literally the same image.
yeah,
You just slap on a filter, and there you go.
that's the one thing too that I am not proficient at is like layer styles and
Yeah.
all those. Like I was looking today before we got started. I was going back through these, and I think it's in Little Red Riding Hood. I think it was. Um, there was one shot in where you have this like heavy glow coming through. Oh, it was this one right here with the glow coming through where it's Little Red uh, walking through this spread.
Oh yeah,
I was
yeah.
like the little bit of glow that pops up there is something that like is so nice and adds such an ambiance uh, to it that that's hard to do traditionally, and I'm always like, oh man, I wish I had that little switch I could flip that would make that happen. And I know it's not just a switch. I know there's more to it than that, but um, it always shines so well when people make those little like glow
Yeah.
effects that really make you see the light
You
all that much more.
you just have
Um,
to be careful not to overuse it.
yes, yeah. You don't want to be what is it? Was it Star Wars that everybody thought of the lens flare,
Yeah,
where it was like every poster had like 15 lens flares on it, and it
yeah.
was
You always have to be very short. You have to choose where you want to put those like little, sparkle moments. And so, yeah,
well. Let me ask you this because this is sort of you're playing in sort of a field that is not necessarily the exact same thing that I'm used to. So like the equivalent of when you're working and you have this mentality towards the like 3D modeling and thinking about space. I don't often think about space with my work. I think of my work as more like flat, and
yeah,
so a lot of my stuff doesn't have this like depth of field or things of the sort. But clearly your work does. But you also have a sort of graphic style that gets applied to it. So if I go look at something like, again, I'm just going to pull up Little Red here. Like she's shape based. There's pretty like somewhat sort of flat colors applied to things. There's little hints of textures here and there, but it still feels relatively dimensional as a space.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah. Because
wondering
I'm
sort of
still I'm still cognizant of the fact like it is a children's book, and like, I still have to be mindful of my audience. And so with kids, I still have to make sure that it's not overly complicated. Like it still has to read, but I don't know, maybe it's more for myself where I visualize things in a 3D space, but I have to make it look more
yeah,
2D, if that makes sense.
like
Yeah.
in your head, you're seeing a three-dimensional space.
Yeah. I'm I'm thinking of it as a set, like I'm looking at a play or something, and so that's how I visualize things. So, but I can easily break it down into a 2D image again. It's like it's a backwards working method, I guess. I don't know.
No, but it's again, I think it's really like fascinating because now that you're saying that, like I don't know if I actually think in 3 dimensions in that same way. Like I can, if you ask me to like draw something that's a dimensional thing, I can draw it. But like when I'm actually illustrating, I think I like actually flatten out the image in my head
Yeah.
before I make. And so that's, I'm just like all of a sudden realizing like, oh, I wonder if I need to try or like mess around with some different ways of setting up the scene. So,
I've
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think the reason why I also do it that way is that I've been so conditioned to like when I was first starting in animation, I would do a lot of turnarounds, and it was usually designs that I didn't create. And
Mm,
so had to I had to break down other artists' 2D designs into a 3D
yeah. Okay.
turnaround. So I was so familiar with that it's kind of just become like a routine for me. Um, and so I think that's why a lot of studios hit me up when I do stuff like that. It's because they know I can break down a design into 3D, and then it helps the modelers be able to figure out
I
stuff.
was
So
watching a interview the other day with I forget who it was that was asking. It was an old Conan, I think it was, where he had on Rob Riggles, the comedian,
yeah,
and that guy was in the Marines, and they were talking about how he's trained, like he never loses that ability to assess the situation that he's in, and where the exits are, and what's the safest route out of that situation, and it just like inherently is ingrained into who he is.
yeah,
Uh, and so like that, it sounds sort of similar in that manner of like no matter what, you're always going to fall um, towards that idea of like, okay, how do I break down this thing that's in front of me? Whether you're consciously deciding or subconsciously rather deciding that or not, that's part of sort of your history and what's built into you
yeah.
in some way. Um, I'm just looking. Mike Petrick says, "What is that drop down you are using that's on the upper left of your screen?" Uh,
Oh, this is called Lazy Nizumi Pro. So if you're like me and have shaky hands, this helps kind of smooth out your line work. You can also do it by using the smoothing tool up above. Like if you see up above on your Photoshop, there's opacity, flow, and smoothing. Smoothing essentially is the same thing. Um, but I just like it because it gives me other options too. Like if I wanted to, let's say, do an
yeah,
eclipse,
yeah.
it can just give me it's just a simple tool that allows me to be able to make them really fast.
This is the. Have you ever gotten trained in Photoshop, like gotten certified or anything of the sort?
No.
Okay,
What
it's one of
do you
those.
ask?
What?
What do you ask? Oh, because I use all these tools.
Yeah, that I've
You're
never
wondering.
like. I don't pay. And again, this is me being sort of rudimentary and just being like, well, I know the brushes and I know how to use an eyedropper, and that's about it. But knowing some of those things, knowing the sort of bells and whistles that come with a program like that, is not something that I naturally know, and so that's what I was thinking. Like, how deep have you dived into this program itself? Uh,
I learn a lot from just have been working in environments with studio environments. Like people share their tips and tricks all the time on how to be more efficient and how to be quick with stuff. And that's kind of how I started adopting them with my workflow.
yeah.
Because when
Do
it
you?
comes down to it, it's all about time and money. And if like for example for us working on children's books, a lot of us that work digitally, that cuts a lot of time. But like figuring out ways to work smarter, not harder, is always my mantra. I got that from. You remember the original DuckTales? That
Yeah.
that was that was the mantra I learned from like Scrooge McDuck: work smarter, not harder. And so it's like I even now as an adult, I'm like, okay, how can I do this more efficiently and faster and not take more time?
That's a good motto to live by. I don't know if it's one that I stick to.
that
I think that's one of those things where
you're,
like,
sounds like you're a glutton for punishment
well,
there,
I,
Eric.
okay, so I don't know if you have the same problem, but I have this problem of whenever I start a project, I have lots of great intention,
Yeah.
But then when I actually start to make the product or, you know, the book or whatever it may be, my good intentions always fall prey to poor planning. Out it's going to be smooth sailing, I don't have to do anything, and then I find out, oops, I colored something a funky color that now is going to be a pain to deal with for the entirety of the book.
Yeah.
That's the thing too. Like the risk of, you know, doing everything analog is that you have those kinds of accidents that you have to work with. I guess it also helps you kind of be more creative and problem solving.
Yeah.
But like
I,
for me, it's about time and money. Like if you spend a lot of time on something, that's more money that you're like losing. So it's like trying to be efficient with my time has always been something I try to strive with.
I think part of it is just I am again I think I plan, but I don't plan the right thing
Yeah.
every time. Or like, you know, I try to head it off at the pass on every single project. Like, oh, this time I'm going to plan that one aspect.
It always tends to work out though, right, Mark? Oh, everyone's still on here. It's just Mark. Okay, good.
Am I back?
There you are. There
Yeah.
you are.
Our Wi-Fi dropped, and I had a little thing on my phone saying, "Hey, do you want to use cellular data?" And when a thing like that comes up, it cuts the audio for some reason. So I just didn't see that it was doing that. Um, so I forget where or what I last said, but I'm going to ask a question of you,
Okay.
which is, uh, what have you made uh, mistakes or flubs that you look back and go like, how could I have thought that, or how could I have done that, because they seem so obvious in your career?
Oh, overuse of texture, overlaying textures.
What
And a lot,
what do you mean by that?
like
Explain.
in a lot of my earlier artworks, I did a lot of, well, when I was learning how to use Photoshop, one of the little tricks I had learned was doing overlays of textures and sort of playing with blend modes on them
Okay.
to kind of give images a little bit more, you know, grit, I guess, or make it appear like there's an actual texture on it. I used that a lot in my early artwork. And even now, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I could have done without that texture overlay.
What was it like when you say too much, meaning like used it too often or too
Yes.
many on the same layer?
um, Both. I did have a texture I really liked
Yeah.
that I put on almost every art image that I had created, but now I kind of stopped doing it because I was like, hey, that was, you know, I've grown past it.
Yeah. Okay.
I got
It's
it
funny.
out of my system.
It's funny. I was doing a high school event yesterday where I went and did a workshop for them and was talking to the like AP students, art students about my career, and then had them do a little demo and things of the sort, or had them make a little project and whatnot. And I bring in some of my scrap paper so they don't have to create a bunch of textures right off the bat. And they would all flip through it, and I realized looking at it, it's like strata on, you know, like a canyon where you can see like the cycle of like, I really love this one color for a little bit. It's just a bin that's layers and layers of old tracing paper that I painted, and you can just see like the influence of color as it goes along of, oh, that was the week that I was really into this color, and that was the week that I was really into that color. And you notice that, like, I've noticed that in the last few weeks I have fallen prey to having lots of purple and yellow and green and just over and over and over again. Then it's like, okay, how do I mix it up? And it's that same it's not to the same level potentially, but it's that same sentiment of like, I fall into the trap of resting on my laurels, or whatever that phrase is that goes with it. So, tell me a little bit about because when I think of you said you're north of Dallas. I don't immediately think of a big entertainment industry there.
No,
I mean,
no.
I think of cars that are all perfect. Like we don't have,
BMWs
yeah.
and
Well,
Lexus and
again,
yeah,
my brother's in Plano, which is
yeah,
like I mean, you know what Plano's like.
yeah,
Um, but also you don't have the sea salt like we do up here. So their cars aren't falling apart in the same way. Uh,
no.
I just
No,
remember like
they
every time
just
I'm down.
keep buying new ones here.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, but I'm wondering, like, I know there's an art scene in that sort of Deep Elm,
Yeah.
that kind of area, but I just don't know, like, the industry that you were in doing sort of visual effects and things of the sort. Was there a big entertainment industry, or was that just a studio that just happened to be in that location?
Um, there was at one point, like I think, especially the Dallas area, there was a boom in like studios. So we had there was a lot of options when I graduated from school where you could work. But a problem here in Texas, I think, had to deal with a lot of the tax breaks. They combined a lot of the animation and the live action and the video game industries into one, and so they were all competing for that same pool of money.
Gotcha.
So then a lot of that kind of killed a lot of the studio work here, and they ended up, like Real Effects, for example, ended up going to Montreal where they were giving all those tax breaks to the animation
Hmm.
studios, which that's why I ended up having to leave Real Effects, was because one, I had wrapped up working on Ugly Dolls, the animated movie, and they were working on Snoopy at the time, or not Snoopy, Scooby-Doo, at the same time, but then they were only doing stuff in LA. And so when I was wrapping up on Ugly Dolls, I asked to get moved over to Scooby-Doo, but they said I couldn't because I didn't live in LA and I wasn't in what is the word? Uh, What's that special group that they have that um, I wasn't a member of? The
Oh,
guild.
yeah.
Yeah. So because I didn't live in LA, I couldn't work on the project. And so I was kind of like, okay, what do I do next? And luckily, I had already been talking to some of the game studios in the area. And one of my friends that I worked with at Real Effects, she ended up going to a studio called Boss Fight. So I had interviewed with them before, and so I decided to go with them. I was talking to them in another studio, and I ended up going to Boss Fight. Um, and it was
What
just great
what is Boss
to be in an
Fight done? That sounds really familiar, and I'm trying to.
Well, they're known for Kingdom Boss was their big game that they had for a long time. But we have since now been merged with Netflix games, and so now we are Netflix,
Yeah.
but we're still Boss Fight at the same time. And we had just came out. The game that I worked on last which is completely not like the stuff that I work on is so kid friendly, but like I worked on the Squid game, which is, very
Yep.
violent and
Yep.
bloody, and although we tried to make it more lighthearted, it is still kind of got some, adult overtones in it. So
You did you get a discount from Netflix?
nope.
Really?
Nope, we pay our subscriptions just like everyone else.
Uh, uh, that's
Yeah.
like my brother works for AWS down there in Texas, and it's Amazon's whatever. I don't even know what they do for Amazon. There's some back end thing, and I'm always wondering sort of what kind of deals he gets at Amazon. And like once you mention Netflix, I'm like, there's got to be something, but
No, but they make up for other ways. It's a great company.
mhm.
They do pay really well. The benefits are
Okay,
great.
okay, that's at least good. That's at
Yeah,
least good. But
yeah.
yeah, that's I mean, you should be able to at least get like $1 off from there.
No, they do we do have they give us like employee cash that we could spend we have like an employee store, but it's like you have to be very mindful that you don't use it if you don't need it kind of situation.
Wait, what's in the employee store at Netflix?
It's usually the same stuff that you see on the website.
Which is what though? I don't even know what's on like
like
oh,
swag, t-shirts
okay.
with the Netflix logo,
Okay.
drinkware,
Okay. Gotcha.
kind of stuff.
We when I started out in animation, we were working on shows for Cartoon Network, and so we got some weird like stuff. We got like TV trays that had Adult Swim stuff on it because the show that I worked on was like the first Adult Swim show.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first show that aired on the first night of Adult Swim. Let's put it that way. And so like we had TV trays that had all the. It wasn't. I don't even think it was just Adult Swim. It was like Harvey Birdman on a metal TV tray, which I have no idea why anybody would need one of those. Or like we had a Cartoon Network bag that was made out of rubber, like a messenger bag that was made out of rubber, and it's like
Weird.
I don't. Again, yeah. Like I think we still have one of those up in a closet somewhere, but
It hasn't
the swag was not
fallen apart or anything, has it?
No, it's still good. I mean, I don't think we really used it much. I don't need a rubber bag, like messenger bag of some sort, but I imagine that the swag nowadays is maybe a little fancier than that from some of those. Especially Netflix has a lot of money. They should be able to. You should be rolling around in a Rolls Royce without question.
Their swag boxes are really great. They are like Christmas whenever we get something, so it's pretty cool.
The do you when you're working now when you're doing the book stuff, are you doing that at night then?
Yeah.
Because you have like, are you going into studio at the companies?
Oh no, we have. Well, since the pandemic, we all work remote 100%. We do have a studio here in the Allen, Texas area.
Yep.
But we only go in if we want to, or if there's like something important, like a mixer or something for work, or important meetings. So it's not required.
And
like our team is like spread all over the U.S.
Yeah.
and Canada now, so it's not like everybody can go in.
And then the with the remote, does it make it? Because I remember like studio practice, sometimes it's you need to run over and ask someone, especially in the animation, like, hey, the scene that you gave me or whatever, this I need to make sure that my whatever lines up with yours.
Yeah.
Right. Does that get challenging with remote in that sense? Like,
no, not at all. Like I think that's the important part is the communication, and luckily our team is really good at communication, so being remote hasn't been an issue.
Do you find when you're working, because like obviously kidlit is a different sort of scenario where you have a long-term deadline and you don't have to necessarily keep in touch with people on a regular basis. Obviously when it comes to like edits and things of the sort, you need to have some conversation with folks, but do you find that is there an invasion of privacy between the two different jobs? Like, do you ever sit working for your studio job and then start thinking about, oh man, this is what I got to do on that book, or vice versa? Working on the book, oh man, I have a deadline that I got to hit and then my boss is going to yell at me if I don't get this done.
There's always that fear of like time management, but like I'm sure, as you know, like there's always got to be a sacrifice in some area, and like for me, I found like doing a lot of children's books at once while working full time can be kind of really difficult. So like my social life was dead. I did have really bad choices when it came to food, and those are things that I didn't learn until the fact of actually being in the middle of it. So now, as things have kind of slowed down, I haven't had a book offer since well, I have had book offers, but the last book I worked on was It's Not the Three Little Pigs.
Okay. With
Josh, and so that's been a couple of years already now.
But you're also not dependent on that, so it's not like
no, like I can be a little bit more choosy on the projects, and I have turned down projects where, like I'm sure a lot of people in the kidlit industry have had to face is like whether or not to take a project because you need the money, or because you need to keep busy while in between projects and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so I have a luxury now of choosing, but what I've been finding lately is that like the projects are not paying anymore. It's almost kind of sad in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I've not seen a huge increase in pay over the years, which I would love to see, but I think part of it is I'm working with a lot of independent
Yeah,
publishers, not
yeah,
some of the big, the big publishers.
yeah.
Um, and so there's a limited budget in all those cases. But I do. I'm in that same boat where like my teaching right now, like I don't need
Yeah,
to have a book on my plate.
yeah,
It definitely is fun, and it definitely like means that I don't have to worry as much about money.
yeah.
But it's not necessary to put food on the table at this
I'm
point.
kind of, yeah, I'm kind of waiting for like the project that speaks to me. Like if I'm
Yeah,
going to dedicate my time to something, I want it to really mean something or really drive me. And
especially if you're giving up your nights and
yeah,
giving up
yeah,
not just
yeah,
a day, like giving up the daytime, but giving up the thing where it's like you're spent from working all day, and then you have to do that. I'm wondering, one of the things that I've been talking to people about, and I forget who it was that I was mentioning this to recently. It may have been some teacher at one point, but that idea of if your day job is essentially working on creative stuff, how do you maintain the creativity aspect? How do you maintain the excitement to actually work on something when um, when it comes to sort of your downtime or what could be
hmm,
your downtime? Like
yeah,
I'm the person who go, I want to watch TV. I don't want to
yeah,
spend my free time working on a project if I don't have to.
yeah.
But how do you manage that kind of like drive aspect?
I, I try to do something fun, whether it's like go to a museum, like if there's a show that's happening, go to a movie, just going out in nature. I like to garden a lot, so going out and playing in the yard and like trimming bushes or you know pruning the rose bushes. Something that's kind of like separate from what I do for work has always been very helpful. Even going like to a bookstore and perusing around,
Yeah.
like something
So
that's not what you're doing for work. Yeah.
since you've been in the game industry and in the book industry and commercial industry, etc., um, is there like a certain type of work that you mentioned that idea of you want to pick things that are going to excite you.
Yeah.
Is there something that should an art director be listening? Who's like, hey, I'm looking for the right person. Like, what is the thing that would be uh, like your dream project, or a thing that you would sort of immediately go, yes, I need to work on that, no matter the
Um,
time or the pay or
well, it depends on like what it is that I want to do. Like I know like for a video game, like my AD knows, my AD John, he knows so much that I want to work on like a cute horror game.
what it,
Like
what
something cute but kind of scary.
okay. Do you
Um,
meaning like I'm trying to think of like a good example of how, meaning that the visuals are cute and there's like,
but kind of creepy.
but like, is there blood and guts and stuff, or is it
Well,
just
they could, or it could be something more artistic. It doesn't have to
okay?
be like gore. I'm not, but um, like Cult of the Lamb is an example of a game that I really like. It's cute. It's kind of the creepy. It's got a creepy kind of vibe to it.
Yeah,
Um, I for book work, I had wanted to work on a celebrity book before. Like that was always a dream of mine to work with a celebrity in something. But like a really sad part of that is that the artists tend to not benefit from that. If like most contracts, it's you don't get any royalties. Most of the attention's on the
yeah,
celebrity, and very
yes,
little of it is given to the artist on the book. And I feel like that's like a very unfair way to treat us as artists. Like I've been fortunate enough to work with writers that have been so generous and so like giving and collaborative on the books I've worked on now to be kind of treated in that kind of way is a sad scenario.
it's
And like it's
I don't I don't know if you have the same thing, but like when I walk into Target, if I go to the book section, I was in there the other day, and I had to kill some time in between some events that I was doing, so I just walked around Target for a little bit, and I was like, let me see what they have in their book section. And the amount of books that were from famous people, like author people, was not really shocking because it was sort of what I was expecting, but it is sort of crazy that that's sort of the bread and butter of that of their book section. It's just like, find someone famous, it will sell because of a name, not because it's a good book. And obviously there's famous folks that will have beautiful books and have beautiful stories and things of the sort, but as someone who wants my story to be told, it can be a little disheartening at times.
It is. It's very sad. Like, like I did get an offer from a celebrity. I'm not going to name names, but like when I read my contract, I was like, why would I do this? I have no rights to my art, so I couldn't sell any prints if I wanted to. They could take your art and then make it into a TV show or a movie, and you'd get no benefit from that. And then the royalties thing, just that's another thing that bothers me is like, as artists, we are constantly like, we're hitting the pavement every day that we're working, but we don't ever get that, that benefit down the line. Like royalties are it for us. So like if a book does well long term, that's money that we would get without having to worry about. But like when they take that kind of stuff away from us, it's kind of disappointing.
You'll have to DM me after this and tell me who that, like, or what that situation.
I forgot who it is.
Okay.
But it was a musician.
Okay. It's interesting because that idea of I never heard of someone actually trying to claim the rights to the artwork.
Yeah,
or like
it's just like that was always something. Like I remember when I was working with Josh on the It's Not books, like they gave me artistic rights, and then I have ownership of my art and my characters. Like if that ever got made into a TV show or a movie, like that was something that I was hopeful for. Like I would be still tied to it. They would ask me for creative input. I would be in some way involved, like just like Josh would be. And so it's that being treated as equals. It's not like Josh is great and he created this world, but like there should be still some credit given to the artist who visually created this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting. I had never heard of that, like, or I had never heard of it going to the point of taking away the visual rights from the artist in those situations. So that shocks me in a obviously in a negative way. Hearing that sort of that twist.
Well, it's not always like that, but like it does kind of put a downer on things. Like maybe that's not like it for every celebrity book, but that was my experience with it, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like we're like artists already are kind of like we're worked to the bone, and if you think about how much time we put into the time and effort and love and attention we put into our book, and then we're not treated the same. Sometimes I hope like artists are aware of what they're worth. And the
wait a second, you put love into your books? I don't. It's just a job. I don't care. Yeah.
That's what we all do it, right? It's because we love what we do. And so, but sometimes people take advantage of that. And that's the part that kind of makes me sad about the industry in itself is that, because we love what we do so much that people can try to take advantage of it. And that's the shameful part.
One of the classes I teach at school is this a class that we call Illustration Business Seminar, or business practices rather.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talk about are some of those like challenges of making sure that you don't get screwed over in contracts and things of the sort. And I will state though that like I feel like most of the time I'm telling these horror stories of like, hey, this is a thing you got to watch out for. This is how you're going to get scammed. This is what you got to like, these are the things that people try to do to you. And then I realized like I'm dealing with these students who are worried about getting out into this industry.
Yeah.
And I basically scared them all to death.
Yeah. But that's the reality of it, right?
I mean,
like you can't sugarcoat it.
No, I don't.
We are working in a business. We're in a corporation.
Yeah, I don't want to hide it.
To say it.
I don't want to hide it from them, but I also want to make sure that I'm like careful so they know that like, not everybody is out there to get you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the industry is working, like the art directors are not there. Like it may be the contract people, but the art director's not always there going like, how do we put one over on
Well,
you know,
no, and that's where like negotiations are important. Like if your agent's really good, they're going to negotiate for you, but sometimes they can't negotiate if the other party is not willing to like give,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so
It is a I think in general a challenging, like that's why I want an agent. I don't want to deal with all those like negotiations and fighting for rights. I want my rights protected and things of the sort, but I don't want to be the person doing it because I know I would cave on so many things so quickly that having someone out there speaking on my behalf is huge for me. And there's other people who are great at getting out there and just fighting the system.
yeah.
But
Well,
not always.
well, yeah, but a lot of us just don't know about it until it's too
Yeah.
late sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
You find out afterwards. Or like the one that I always get when I get the contracts, I don't know if you get the same thing, but when it starts talking about like overstock and all those weird percentages, like I understand royalty, I get percentages that go along with that, but then when they start getting into some of those like nuances of if it's on sale and it's leftovers, I'm like I don't know what percentage I'm supposed to be asking in this situation, and that's where my agent steps in and just goes, here's what you want.
yeah.
And I'm happy.
It's usually what I do. It's like, what do you think? And they're like, it's a good deal. That's about
Yeah.
normal. I'm like, hey.
Yeah, it's you go on faith a little bit
Yeah.
in those situations of like they know what they're talking about. They're gonna fight for me because they're fighting for themselves in the situation too, based on the percentage they get. And so like I want to
because they've got skin in the game too, so they know like they want to make money as well. So if you're not getting enough, they're certainly not going to make a lot either. So
yeah. I mean, sometimes it's I don't know if on the editorial side that I've worked. I don't know if you've ever worked in that, but like sometimes the offers they give for like a little tiny spot in a magazine or whatever can be so minimal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why an agent in that situation? Like, it may be like a tiny little spot and you get let's say $600 for the job.
Yeah.
If they're getting 30%, what is that? 600, so 60, they get like $180 as an agent. And it's like, I don't know how much effort or like what, that doesn't seem like it's a huge payday for anybody in one of those situations. Even though it may be a tiny little illustration, it takes you a short amount of time to do.
Yeah.
Like on their end, they're barely making any money just because it's a small paycheck to begin with.
Yeah.
But it really,
that's where you kind of make that call, right? You kind of decide, is it worth my time?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, even if it's a low paying job. Like I know some of my favorite gigs have been like with Highlights magazines. Like shout out to Patrick if you're watching, Patrick. But like I loved working on Highlights. It was almost like a full circle moment of my childhood me loving those magazines as a kid, but then getting to create stuff for it now. It's like, wow, it's mind blowing. And the only thing my mom, out of my whole career, that she can remember is the Highlight magazines that I've done. So it's like,
as long as you're not doing, are you doing Goofus and Gallant?
No, Goofus and Gallant.
You don't know what Goofus and Gallant is?
No,
that's the one.
Who's that?
It's like it's an old timey like image or storytelling device from like the 60s or whatever, where it's basically Goofus is an idiot and Gallant is really smart. And it's always like tales of moral tales.
Okay.
Goofus didn't wash his hands. Gallant kind of situation. And they still show up in those magazines. Someone's got to illustrate them, and I have more power to them. But I'm always like, that's such a like old gimmick that I don't know if I would ever want to do that one in particular, just because it's. I think of it as like this thing from the '60s, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's more than that. But Goofus and Gallant, yeah, you gotta look up Goofus and Gallant. They're
sounds familiar.
They're superstars in the Highlights magazine world.
So funny.
Tell me, wait, what is that poem? I don't know what someone's asking in the background. Tell me a little bit about sort of the the time frame, like studio, when you go home at night and you're working on stuff, do you have a hard out in those nights? So like, I got to be done by
Yeah,
this time.
I usually try to call it a night by 11. Like if I'm gonna work, I'll try to cut it off at 10. Like if I really needed to get some rest, but like 11 is the absolute dead cutoff. Like because I still need time to decompress.
Yeah, because you got to get up in the morning
Yeah,
and
yeah,
party again with
yeah.
whatever the job. What time do you have to start working for the studio stuff?
Oh, usually around 9 o'clock. We don't officially start till 10 as core hours, but I usually try to get in an hour early so that way, I can get comfortable, read emails, check Slack, and get all that stuff done so that way I can actually have time to actually do work.
Yeah. Uh, Wait, what? My wife just wrote, Goofus barges in the door and asks, what's for dinner? Gallant knocks politely and asks if he can help you with anything. Yes, that's the gimmick. Is there is Slack how you all sort of operate and stay in touch then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the preferred method of like just chatting with each other.
Is there
I'm
oh, go ahead, please.
I'm Googling Goofus and Gallant.
I think it's something that's been around for ages and ages, and I could be wrong.
I don't remember them being in any of the early or the current highlight magazines.
They are. It doesn't happen all the time, but they are. Like I've seen them. I think in the last one we got, there was a Goofus and Gallant in it.
That's funny. That's really cool that they're doing some retro stuff.
Yeah,
their current stuff.
It's one of those, like, when I think of it as like those. I don't know your age, but for me, like going back to woodshop classes or whatever, and they'd have those like those old films or old slideshows where it would beep and it would they would click the clicker to change to the next slide.
Yeah,
and it would that kind of vibe of Goofus and Gallant showing up.
That's funny.
Yeah, my wife said it's definitely been in highlights since we were kids. Yeah, it's one of those, like, it may be an age thing too. So
you can't be that much older than me. I'm in my 40s, so
okay. Yeah, I'm 40. I don't know. I'm 47 or 48. I don't remember which.
Okay. Yeah, you're not
Okay.
that much older than me. I'm 44.
Okay.
So.
We ran in different circles. I ran in the Goofus and Gallant circle. You ran in the cool kid circle. Is basically
I was not in the cool kid circle.
So since you are in the, here we'll do this. Since you are in the cool kid circle, what cool things are you based on entertainment and the industry that you work in? Are there things that you're really excited about, like whether it be books or movies or games and things of the sort?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm really into comic books, so like, I'm excited for Marvel digging into the mutants stuff.
You mean in the movies?
Yeah, like I'm excited for that. What that's gonna bring. I'm a big when I was a kid. Of course, I read a lot of children's books when I was little, but then when I got to my teenage years, I was like hardcore X-Men comics. Growing up, and so like I spent all my time like you. I think I wanted to become a comic book artist.
Yep.
So that was my goal, was to someday do Marvel comics. And then I remember this was during the time that Image was still around. We were living in Syracuse at the time. I know I was a freshman in high school, and I was already in the advanced placement class with all the seniors. And so the teacher was having some friends of hers that were inkers for Image Comics that lived in Syracuse come speak to us in class and kind of look at our artwork. And they came in and they talked to us. And one, you don't normally get to see the type of people who worked on comic books, but they looked tired, like really tired. And I felt bad for them. Like they looked exhausted. Like they had bags under their eyes. They looked unkempt. Their clothes were all black, I guess maybe because the ink that they were wearing, and their hands were always dirty. And I was like, visually at first I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want that. And then, they talked about how hard it was, and, the late nights and the constant work. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do comic books now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, maybe comic books are not in my world. So I kind of made that decision at that point. Like maybe I'll just be a fan. but there was a lot of wanting to be a comic book artist growing up. Like,
Were you were you a were you in the same collector era that I was, where it was like, I mean, you must have been, where it was like the death of Superman and all
yeah,
those kinds of things, where everybody bought like 15 copies of everything,
yeah,
and they're
and
not worth
everything
anything.
cost like $25 to buy a comic book. I
Yeah,
remember when it was so expensive, I would save up my allowance just to buy one comic book a week because it was so expensive at that time.
and you get variants. Every single cover you had to have
Yes,
for
the
your.
X-Men ones were notorious for that, like
I just
bifold covers
a
and stuff. Yeah.
couple of weeks, not weeks. No, that's wrong. About a year ago, maybe somewhere, maybe 2 years ago, I sold my comics collection. Uh,
Oh, what?
yeah.
That must
Well,
have been
it
hard.
was it was hard. Like, there were ones where I was like, okay, these are ones that I want to keep, and it was stuff that I thought maybe my son would want to read at some point or something of the sort. But um, it was so many of them were just sitting up in an attic, and in my garage or whatever, and it wasn't like I was reading them on a regular basis or anything of the
Oh,
sort.
got it. Okay.
But where it was hard is, I was like, oh, this New Mutants cover is like with Cable on it or whatever. Like, this thing's going to be worth something.
Hmm.
And all these things that I thought were going to be worth things, some of them were, but the place that I went to sell it at, they said, we can price out every individual thing, or we can go through and look for the things that are important, and then the rest of it we'll just give you a bulk price on. And so I was like, oh, they'll pull out all these great things, and I'll make bank on this, and then I'll feel really good that I sold it because I'll have made some money.
Yeah.
And the price I came back with was so pitiful for what I thought I was going to get, because I tried to look them up ahead of time and be like, oh, this one's worth something, and this, like, what's it selling for on eBay kind of situation. But it was just, so many people had so many of those books that that unless you had the exact copy, or like, if you had the newsstand copy versus the mail or the subscription copy, or like, there were so many odds
Yeah.
like that it just, I think I probably had things that were the second printing of, and not actually worth something, and I just didn't know it.
Yeah,
So,
that's something I didn't realize about too, because I had the mail subscription ones, and those were always like the second or third print.
yep. But there were some that I had that were like I had, what's that Hulk one, or the Wolverine with Hulk cover, where like you can see Hulk in the blades. Do you know what
Oh,
I'm talking
I don't
about?
remember that one.
It's
Yeah.
Wolverine's claws, and you can see Hulk's reflection in them.
Was
It's a
it
very
like
famous image,
a,
but
okay.
I thought it was going to be worth something, but I think it was just so like beat up. It was such an old, like, random sort of, not mint condition kind of situation, that it probably just wasn't worth anything. And so it was, when they handed that price, I was a little sad, but at the same time, I wasn't doing anything with them. Hopefully someone else will read them at some point, and I'll feel better because they got some love of
Yeah.
some sort. But when you mentioned that idea of scary, cute, have you seen the movie Pearl?
What does this sound familiar? Pearl.
There was a movie called X that was a sort of, I want to say, a slasher movie of sorts, and then they did a prequel to it called Pearl, and then they did
Oh,
a third
yes.
one
Yeah.
called Maxine.
That
Uh,
was the one where the Pearl was the girl with the axe killing her boyfriend. Is that the one?
yes,
Yes.
like an old 50s, or maybe even like 30. No, it was World War I think is what it was when it was set.
Yeah.
Of some sort. Like, so good. My wife and I watched it the other day, and it's the style of it is so, like, when you say that, like, cute aspect, like, it's the Technicolor aspect of everything makes it feel like it's like Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
turns horrible fairly quickly
Yeah.
thereafter. Is there books in particular that you're excited about? Like, do you
coming.
still buy picture books at this point? You said that you were.
I do.
Before.
It's funny. Like I listened to your interview with a few of the other artists, and you mentioned what's it called? Uh, Genevieve Gabot. I don't even know if I'm saying her last name right. Yeah, when you guys were
yeah,
talking about the neon cover with the
yep,
bookstore, I was like, oh, I know exactly the one that everyone's waiting for. But yeah,
Deer
I just got
Bookstore.
mine the other day.
Oh, it's
Yeah, that's
wait, you
it.
just got it?
I, yeah, I just got it because you guys reminded me, and I completely forgot
Oh,
about it. And
isn't it
so when you
gorgeous?
mentioned it, it's beautiful. Like the thing is I don't do texture in my arts. I'm very much more of a flat kind of artist, where she does this like sketchiness in her artwork. I don't know if it's because she's using colored pencils or something, but
She's
I love
pencil and
that
pastel.
texture. Yeah. So it's just like that kind of, her shapes are very simple, and I love that. It's just that the way she uses that texture is so, I don't know, it's like visual eye
And
candy.
then that
It's like,
that spot color that she
yeah,
uses is just so good.
yeah,
I can't get over like the quality of that book, and it also like, I mean, it I'm sure that it sells absolutely well because any bookstore owner sees a book that's about bookstores. Like, who's not going to buy that?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy at that point. Um, that's the ticket. You got to get into like a book about a library
yeah.
or a book about bookstores or book love, and then
It's always hard to figure out like what's going to be like popular for that year, what's going to sell.
the uh, with the books that you've illustrated. Um, do you ever? I mean, one of the challenges I think about, and I probably think about it way too much, but about that idea of sort of what's current in the market, how does it set itself apart, and making sure that you're not sort of following trends
Yeah.
of some sort. How much weight do you give to something like that? Sort of thinking about the marketability of your images or just the book in general, and how you perceive like illustrating it.
That's
I mean,
it's always like a conversation I think I like to have with my editor and my art director on the book. Like, because obviously when they hire you for something, you have the style that they're wanting
yeah,
or the look that they want. But it's a matter of like, okay, what are the things that are going to make this book popular? They usually can answer those kinds of things. And so, like, I know from Josh and my books experiences with the fairy tale stuff, fairy tales do generally really well. And there are popular ones that they always want to make sure you hit. And so, like, I know when we did Jack and the Beanstalk and we did Hansel and Gretel and Little Red Riding Hood, those were known to do well. Although when It's Not Little Red Riding Hood came out, it was during the pandemic. Nobody was buying books.
yes,
So
and hit the
it
same
was
way.
surprising like how yeah, so it was surprising like how she didn't do so well because Little Red Riding Hood books tend to always sell well. Um, but when we got to the Three Little Pigs was kind of iffy. Like that wasn't usually one that people would buy normally when they do fairy
Yeah,
tales. It's usually about the kid. They usually sell the kids when the kids can see themselves as the character in the book. So when we did the Three Little Pigs, it was kind of a an off the beaten path. I think it did pretty well. People are always asking when we're going to do the next one or what is the next one. Um, but like right now, I think the market is still trying to recover from the pandemic.
yeah.
And so
It's still a
it's
little
still,
sketchy out there.
yeah,
I
yeah. And so like a lot of publishers are not willing to just take a risk on books anymore. They're very mindful and they're watching what sells and what doesn't. And so like they're waiting for when the right moment is to start bringing back these fairy tales
do
again.
you have? I mean, obviously, like the first book comes to you, and your agent brings it, and you go, "Oh, great, I want to work on that." And then the second book comes. I By the time that the second book ends, are you already in a conversation with Josh saying like, "Hey, you want to do another one?"
Of course, like if you've met Josh,
I have.
you know Josh is fantastic. He's like my one of my favorite authors that I've worked with, and it's not just because of his writing, but he as a human being, he's a very nice man and very supportive and all of it. And so like if I were asked to do another Josh Funk book, I would say yes in a heartbeat. Like like when I was working on it, I would show him stuff all the time and he would just love it. And it was kind of like we were feeding each other ideas. So then he would get to change something in the text because he saw something that I did in one of the drawings.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so it was always really cool because he would wait to see what I would come up with, and then he would be like, "Oh, that was really cool," or he's like, "Hey, I was actually thinking if we did something like this," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about it. Like maybe I'll do that." And he's like, "Okay, cool." And then there was this open dialogue between the two of us, and I don't think a lot of people get that
They definitely don't
when
on
they're
the
working
first
on.
book. Yeah. But a series you get a little bit more. Like I talk with the author of a series that I'm involved in now. Like I don't even go to the publisher. I'm just like, I'm just gonna call her and say like, hey, what do you think I should do here? Situations.
Yeah.
But
I remember hearing like it was a no-no. Like
yeah.
I remember someone saying like you don't usually do that. You usually talk with your art director. My art director at the time on those books, Meredith, she was fantastic too. Like I loved Meredith. And so like having that open creative sharing was like very motivating.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
can imagine the idea of uh, especially those books are so like joke heavy
yeah,
and need that idea of
the visual jokes have to land with the written jokes.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
like if you need to be able to sit there and go like, okay, here's, you wrote this thing and I'm going to put this in there, but it will work better if this one word changes or this one little image changes, and you go back and forth on those, and it's not like every page is loaded in those, especially the last spread,
Yeah.
where it's always like I was looking through I think it was the Three Little Pigs one, and the last page,
Oh,
the
that
theater.
one was a,
Yeah,
that was a lot. Yeah.
that was a decision you'd rethink. Is that what you're
No, I
saying?
would never. No, not at all. Because at the last page of every one of those books, it's very much who's who in the world.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you question like who's next, whose story is going to get told, because you see them in the book. Like I put so many, fable characters and fairy tale characters in all of these books. Like I want people to wonder, okay, will they get a story next? Or, there's the grasshopper and the ant. Will they get a book next? It's like I want the readers to be excited to see like what else will come down the pipe with the It's Not books.
So
So
if you had a choice of what would be next, is there one that you would want?
well, this is the thing. Josh and I have talked about this several times, and I think it always comes down to like legality of the characters. Like I know like Wizard of Oz had been just recently opened where you can use them. The
Okay.
Frank L. Baum
Yep.
characters. And so like I did do Dorothy and the Tin Man and I think the rest of the characters in the Little Red Riding Hood. I think they showed up in the diner scene at the end. But there was also Robin Hood. Josh really liked the idea of like Robin Hood as kids, and so they're also in that diner shot.
Does that mean that if they're in those shots though that you can't? Well, I guess no, you can. I was gonna say, can you use those if you've already sort of drawn them out? Like, is there any sort of limitation on, hey, we've already touched on the subject of this character in this one visual, and now
Yeah.
like, well, with something new kind of situation. But
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like, can we really do a retelling of those kinds of stories? And so that's kind of the idea. I think we were kind of wanting to. I guess the editor wants us to stick with more classic fairy tale characters. So like maybe going back and doing Cindy from Jack and the Beanstalk, Cinderella as her story, or there's also Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, although like that's kind of a controversy right now. So it's like probably don't want to touch that.
no, yeah, I don't think it's selling well in the box office. So I wouldn't.
No, it's not. And so I think they had the foresight to kind of like let's not touch those. But yeah, like there's a lot of characters in those books that I wish that we had a chance to go back and do. Josh and I even talked about what if we did like mini stories as one. So it's not instead of a whole big story, what if we just did funny little small poems or something and then just illustrate those characters in those moments.
Yeah, sort of an anthology of
Yeah.
of those stories. I see there's a question here from our Argyle.illustration. That is a fabulous question. Speaking of movies, what would be the one movie, not necessarily a children's themed movie, you'd love to be offered to illustrate? So if you had to
Oh.
do something of the sort, what are we doing?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. So many of them have already been done. Like, I know Taylor Cracknell did the Golden Book for Garfield. Garfield was the first cartoon character I ever learned how to draw. So when they were doing the animated movie,
Yeah.
I was like, I wish I could have worked on that. And so I saw his book and I was like, man, I wish I could have done that. Um, Trying to think what else. Animated or I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm trying to think of,
Um,
like, yeah, if there's something that would like immediately pop into my head of, I mean, there's movies I like, but I don't know if there'd be movies that would translate in the same way. Like
yeah.
my favorite movie is Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but it's already kind of a cartoon in a way,
Yeah.
and so I don't think it would be as exciting of a
I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I love that movie too.
so you know, and also like what would fit my aesthetic. Like I feel like your aesthetic would probably match. I mean, that's probably why these books work so well, the It's Not books, because you're able to capture sort of the likeness and the vibe of those. But my aesthetic is much more, especially now, has gotten weirder and weirder, and so like me capturing a likeness is not important to me.
You're not getting weirder or weirder. You're just evolving
Yeah, well,
every.
okay, evolving for the better, I think. But I think
Yeah.
that like I don't care about likeness in a way where like if someone said, "Hey, we need to have George Washington in this piece," like good luck getting me to make it look like George Washington,
Yeah.
because I would either rebel against it or I just wouldn't do enough research and it would look like somebody else in the end.
Yeah. I've had projects where I've had to do likenesses like that before, and it is really tough. Like, especially if the person's still alive or you
Is
have
there
their family members kind of judging too.
is there
So,
is there one in particular you can like think of, like who you had to?
oh, oh yeah, I did. So I did some work for what is it? The Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they were doing a display for Teddy Roosevelt, and they asked me to do some illustrations of Teddy Roosevelt, and it was probably one of the hardest, if not worst, experiences I've ever had. And that's where I learned the lesson of, you know, you have to set limits. And so, like, when people usually ask you how your workflow goes,
Yeah.
I do my sketches, you give me feedback, I make those adjustments, we move on. But then I didn't know that I have to say, well, you only get one round of notes. So make sure you think carefully about what it is that you want. This client was like constant note
Ugh.
after note after note after note after note. And literally, it was like 2 weeks in every day of me making adjustments. And I finally had talked to my agent. I was like, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to walk away. Like, at this point, like, you have to understand, like, or they should realize, like, you're not at their beck and call. There is a limit to how many times you can ask for things, and
Do you
that if
do you
you're
have that
going to
in,
continue,
oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, do you have that in the contract?
yes. Now I have it.
Yeah.
It has to be agreed on. Like, okay, this is how we work. Now, if you want more edits, it's going to cost you this much per edit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And usually that kind of rings them in because then they realize, oh, I have to watch how I spend my money. So
Yep.
I need to be very mindful of what notes I give you and be concise and know exactly what I want. So,
Is
but
there
yeah, that was a really rough,
can,
that was a learning
I
lesson
can
right there.
imagine that one was I mean I've had projects where like, and even recently I've had something where it's always this debate of you don't want to do tons of edits, but also like there's certain projects where you give a little more because you know it will turn out to be something, or there's the potential there and you don't want to burn a bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
There are certain clients where it's like they just don't know that this is not called for, or that this is uncalled for rather, to keep giving notes after notes after notes after notes. Um,
Yeah.
is there a author or anybody in particular that if they came to you that you would go, I have to work on that as well, beyond Josh?
Oh my goodness.
Just thinking of like the things that you love, like if Jim Davis were alive, so to speak. He's not, right? Jim
Yeah,
Davis.
I don't know if is he? I don't know.
I don't think he is.
Um,
I could be wrong, but if he is alive, he's very old. I just know he doesn't make the comics anymore.
yeah, no. I don't know. Authors.
Or is there anybody you would want to collaborate with, just in general, whether it be author or another artist that you're like, oh, it'd be fun to work on a project with this person?
I always thought it would be funny if Stephen King decided to do children's books, but horror children's books. Like, I think there would be a market for that because, Roald Dahl had his Skin, and that was one of my favorite of his series, and a lot of people don't really know about it. They always think of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or the other ones, but I liked his scary stories.
Wait, what is the one you just mentioned? His Skins?
Skin, Roald Dahl's
Oh,
Skin.
yeah, I don't know
and
that
other
one.
stories. Another thing that so like Halloween has always been my favorite holiday when I was a kid, and so I always knew like that's when the librarian would put out all the really good Halloween books because they don't always keep them out all the time. Like when I was a kid, it was hard to find all the library books that were Halloween themed. So when they would gather them all up, I would always get the same ones every year as a kid. And the other one that I loved was the Alvin Schwartz books. Let's see, like the ones that were banned. You know what I mean? The scary stories to tell in the dark series.
Do I know that? Wait, are those the black and white?
Yeah. Yes, the horror ones.
Yeah. With the
Yes.
scary head on the cover.
Yes.
Yeah, I know one.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was I did Inktober one year, and I did all of my Inktober's based off the stories from his series, the scary stories to tell in the dark.
I remember I don't remember all the stories from that, but I do remember there was one that was about a thumb.
Yep. The thumb soup, or was it? No, it was a toe soup.
Well, there was one about a thumb that, or at least the image was a thumb coming up out of like a grave. Maybe
that was a toe. Yeah, that was the toe soup.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of then. I just remember that one in particular, and I remember like being horrified about it as a kid, but also kind of thinking it was funny because it was
a toe,
like a toe or a digit or whatever it was. Yeah, and
like sticking out of the ground. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
That is, I think there's like an age of kids that just like that was the scary thing for them. That book in particular, and like I will never forget those illustrations, because they were just so like weird and like the watery texture of them and whatnot. That would be, that's the can you turn those into scary cute over time?
Yeah, I think I did those with my Inktober's when I did them.
But they were cute, or were they just scary?
They were. I didn't show any gore or any of the scary stuff, but like it's always implied, right? So the kids imagine what it would really be like, and so it kind of lets them come up with the scary parts.
I was just saying to someone the other day that like the idea of how do you make something scary is so contextual.
Mm-hmm.
So I have, in the teaching that I do, I have so many college students that are new to illustration, and then they go, well, I want to draw something scary, and their first inclination is to put blood and guts.
Yeah, no.
Black and white with red. That classic, what's black and white with red all over? That's their sort of like go-to, and I have to explain to them like there's so many other ways to do this, and who it's scary for makes such a difference. The context of like where's this going to be seen, and I always the joke I always make is like what's scary to me is if I have to like replace my roof and I don't have the money, or I forget a mortgage payment. Like that's scary.
Yeah.
The idea of like a person with some with a knife in their hand doesn't scare me in the same way anymore that it once did when I was little. And like find the context for what you're doing, because if you don't, it's not going to register with your audience.
Yeah.
Do you like scary movies in general?
Yeah, I do. Like I'm not like a horror fanatic or anything, but I do like a good story, whether it's a horror or a rom-com or an action adventure. Is if the story is good.
So the scary cute is not because you're like a big
No, I
time
think
horror.
it's just more of like I think like when I was a kid, like my you know how every kid who gets into animation, they had their in. What was their innie? Like what was
Yeah.
the thing that got them into animation? Mine was Nightmare Before Christmas. And so that kind of has always stuck with me. And so like when I was looking into, before I became an illustrator myself, like I was a big fan of like artists like Gris Grimling, like his fractured fairy
Yeah.
tales, like those alphabets that he would do. I loved like that kind of quirky, scary, beautiful things that he did in his work. And so even though that's not my aesthetic in my own artwork, I do appreciate other people who do stuff like that. And so even this, like just talking about, Genevieve's work, like that's not what I do, but I can appreciate somebody who
Oh
does
yeah.
that.
Yeah, totally.
Because I'm not going to mimic people I admire. Like obviously we all have the things that we're known for and the things that we're good at and the things that people are seeking us to do for. So it's like, I may not be like her, but I do love what she does. So I don't know.
The is there someone like thinking about that idea of, because we were just talking about this in class the other day about there's this great book by Marshall Arisman and Stephen Heller. Do you know those names at all?
Mm.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, because they're great. Stephen Heller is a sort of contemporary writer about visual communication and sort of illustration in particular, but also some graphic design and some animation and things of the sort. And Marshall Arisman passed away maybe about like 5 years ago, somewhere in that range. And he was a very well-known editorial illustrator, gallery person, etc., but also was the chair of the MFA in visual essay at SVA in New York. And they both wrote a bunch of different books about like the business of illustration and the art of education and blah, blah, like all these different things, odds and ends. And they had this little segment in a book about ethics that I was reading to students. And one of the things that's in it is talking about the not being envious, not sort of stealing from other people, and not sort of like trying to compare yourself and constantly critique what you do. And
Oh yeah.
we were talking about that idea of like, you have your heroes, but at a certain point, I told all the students, I was like, do you have a hero artist that you really love? And they said yes, and I said, throw them away. And they all like hated me saying that, but I'm like, yeah, if you start to love someone too much, you're going to become a mimic of that person.
Well, and not only that, like when you meet them in person, what if they disappoint you?
Yeah.
And I've had that happen. Like I've met artists that I love their artwork, and then I meet them in person, and they're not nice people. And it's kind of like, wow, I really shouldn't have, probably shouldn't have met you.
Yeah, you put too much faith in them.
Yeah,
And
because you put in this, you see all their beautiful artwork, and you think, wow, they must be really sweet, great people. Like their artwork is so beautiful. But then what if you meet them and they're not? And well, granted, they could be having a bad day.
yeah,
I'm
but
sure everyone's got their bad days, but like, first impressions are first impressions. And so I guess that's probably why I'm so terrified to even do any book signings, is because I don't want to disappoint anybody.
You're a terrible person?
No, I just like, I don't want to come across as like rude or mean or flippant or like I don't care, because I do have this, I guess, the resting bitch face as people, you know what I mean? It's like I'm not aware that my face seems like a certain way, but I don't mean to be. Like obviously if I'm talking to you guys, like you could tell I'm not like a mean person, but
Sorry. jokester in me had to make that noise. No, I get it. I have to do a school visit in a couple of weeks, and I always worry about that. Sort of like,
Yeah.
how do I come across to these little kids? Do I look? Because I'm a tall dude and big and whatnot, and do I come across threatening in any way?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, there's all sorts of vibes to it. But have you done signings or book readings or anything of the sort?
Um, some mostly in conventions. Like I don't like I've been asked to do school visits and go to bookstores. Like the last time Josh was here, last year, he came and he asked me if I wanted to sign with him. I was like, I was like, I'll come as support, but I don't want to sign. Like, don't draw any attention to me. And he was like, okay, I get it. I was like, I just don't like the, it makes me kind of weirded to think about, you know, I don't know. It's just me.
No, I get it. I get it. It is. Some people
Like,
don't want to be the face of and like, the
just the kind
writer.
of attention,
Yeah, the
yeah,
writer oftentimes
the
wants to
attention
do
kind
that.
of bothers me.
Is there it with working with or being in that situation? Was there any uh like kids or anybody coming up to you going like, "Can you please sign it?" Because he must have at least pointed you out and said, "There's the illustrator."
Oh, no, no, yeah, no, no. I have had friends say like, oh yeah, did you know that he illustrated the book? And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, I don't want that kind of attention. They're like, oh, did you do this? Like, yeah. Like it's
But
it's a little weird for me. I don't know.
I mean, it's I don't know if it is my like personality or just the fact that I've been in this environment of speaking to people so much in schools or like teaching wise that it
Yeah,
doesn't phase me in the same way. But I get the sentiment of like there's times where I don't want to be the center of attention,
yeah,
but then there's other times like if it's a classroom, like I will admit like I don't mind being the one that people are looking at during
well,
those.
no, no, no.
But
Yeah, because those are always different though, right? Like the school environment, like I taught classes when I was at UTD, and it's a different kind of, I don't know, different dynamic.
yeah, I worry that I speak too much. I
Oh.
last well, okay, so at the end of the week, we do these Gavin Doodles, and then I go in back and I start to look at like, okay, I need to post it on YouTube, and we find a clip every time to put in front of the title card on YouTube. And this last week we had on Anusha Sayed,
Yeah.
and I was trying to go through to find a little audio clip,
Okay.
and I'm scrolling through, and every time I would stop scrolling, it was me talking. It was never her talking. It was always me talking. And then like it comes, all of a sudden I start thinking like, oh no, I'm talking way too
Well,
much.
I hope I gave you some sound clips
Oh, you have,
then.
you have. We got.
Okay, good.
And that's not an issue. It's just like that the dread of realizing that I'm doing most of the talking on this, and then it becomes this question of am I doing this to bring other people in, or am I doing this so I can just hear myself talk?
Yeah.
And like
No.
I don't want to be that person. So say something so I stop talking. um, is there for your art practice? Are there things that you I see someone did say, Bear Edwards said that I'm assuming this means Jim Davis. It says he is
Yes.
alive.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for checking that.
I hope I did not disparage his family or make it seem like I want him to be gone. But
Oh my God, if he listened to this, thank you for your
yeah.
comics and for Garfield.
Thank you for the silent or the comics without Garfield. But you got us to that point because those are so fun. Shoot, what was I gonna say? I don't remember what I was gonna say. I will go to this. I know what I was gonna say. Are there things outside of art, in particular, that sort of influence you as an artist? Whether it be like weird little facts or things of the sort. Like I really love. Well, I shouldn't say I really love, but science and like history and those kinds of things are things that I like when I read them or I see them on TV, I gravitate towards them. And so they show
Hmm.
up in weird little ways, like some little aesthetic that I put into a work, or maybe a subject matter or things of the sort. But are there things that you draw on?
Hmm. Gosh, that was a tough one too. What did I draw from outside? I think, well, my partner is in theater, and I think because you had brought up like my characters are very like animated in there, there's full of life in them. I think because I've been around my partner for so long, I kind of brought that into my own work too. So I always think of my characters as actors on a set, and
Okay.
so making sure that I'm posing them in ways that are communicating, that they're not just standing there, or they don't seem like they're all like comfortable in poses, has always been important to me. Like I need to show that they're all in some sort of action, and if they're not in action, it's in support of whoever is in focus. Um,
Do you?
just like in a play, like there's always someone who's center of attention at that moment, and the other ones are just like, the side actors. I kind of feel the same way with when you have an ensemble of characters, especially with the books that Josh and I have done, making sure you're drawing the right attention to the right characters at the right moment.
Is there when you're working on some of the staging and things of the sort? Like one of the things that I try to stress in classes is the idea of sort of foreground, middle ground, and background. And I
Yeah,
mentioned the idea of stage productions in that same sense. Like you got to, in a sense, give a false notion of um, depth
yeah,
because you gotta hit that in there in some way. And so, like in my case, it's relatively flat. It's not a super deep stage, but there's a stage that sort of pops up. Is there when you're designing and you're making those setups, are there things that you do in particular to sort of think about foreground, middle ground, background? Are there ways that you try to populate that scene to make it feel stage-like, or is that just sort of the way that you think in those instances?
yeah. I always, especially like whenever I have books where I have to start with a setting, like a location, I always think of that in terms of like, I'm doing an environment piece. And so I do break it up where there's a foreground, middle ground, background. Kind of like in the old classic Disney films, like in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, like whenever they had those shots where you were moving through with those, they use the glass to kind of create that depth. I always kind of imagine like that's how I would do it in my children's books, where you kind of would, if you had that kind of parallax, you would know what those pieces would that would be moving through space, I guess,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So yeah, I kind of do think of it in that way whenever I'm creating at least like a establishing shot, like a building or a location of where the characters are going to be at.
Do you when you're done with a book, do you ever go back and like because one of the challenges I always have is I work on a book and I work on a page and it seems really exciting in the moment, and then I finish that page and I move on to the next spread or whatever it may be, and then I go back and look at it and I realize I haven't like there's something missing.
Oh
Where
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like
definitely.
it's by comparison effectively it
Yeah.
starts to like not have the same weight. And I'm wondering, do you go back into those into any of your work and try to update or change to jazz up pages to compete with other pages in the long run?
Yeah, that's called I do that in the finishing phase, and that's the very end. Like when I have all the pages pretty much done, I'll go back and then I'll add any extra flourishes or any details that may have been missed. And so I do scour my pages like crazy. Um, whether it's like adding more grass blades, like it's easy when you're working that you forget how you did something in another page, even
Yes.
though it's the exact kind of, you know, same location. Like you could accidentally use the wrong brush and you did the textures wrong in that one versus the later ones. So yeah, I do a finishing pass where I kind of go through each page and say, okay, do I need to edit? take out or do I add? And if I'm adding, is it important enough to add, or is it just so it looks good? So it's kind of, you have to make those decisions
I've always had this.
at the very
I've
end.
always had this problem of because I'm working traditionally, mixing of colors, and
Oh,
it's
yeah,
you finish it and then you go, oh great, I missed this one little ear or whatever it is. It's always
yeah,
some like really small thing, and then it becomes a question of, is it worth the effort just for my own like ego of sorts to go and actually re or paint that one little thing and try to mix those colors, or can I just go like, or am I willing rather to hop on the computer and just digitally touch it up at that
yeah.
point? And that's always a hard debate in my head of like, which one is worth the effort, or which one.
So what do you usually end up doing?
Most of the time I actually go and paint it.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's not because it's, I said ego in a way, but I don't, it's not always because of the ego aspect. I think it's more so, I want to make sure that it matches the like texture, and I'm always afraid. I'm someone who is deathly afraid of copying and pasting, and I know it
yeah,
makes your life easier, and I know it makes the whole process easier in general. But I always fear that if I start to copy and paste, that someone's going to spot it.
yeah,
And so like that
yeah.
same aspect of it, if I try to do it digitally and I have to like pull colors or textures from some spot, I'm always like, oh, someone's going to see this and they're going to know. They're going to know what I did, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. I get that.
Oh, my wife said, I was enjoying the Three Little Pigs book earlier. Was it fun to do the blueprints of various types of houses that the builder pig could make?
Oh
There was a
my
lot.
God, that was a lot of fun.
What I mean,
Like,
I was looking at those earlier too, and I'm just like, there was so much detail in there and so many odds and ends. And was that something that,
that was
like,
something that Josh and I were doing a lot of, like hitting the ball back and forth on, because there are a lot of puns in there. If you could read them, like there's a lot of puns used in those blueprints. So I don't know if anyone else is out there looking through my books, but like I try to put in a lot of Easter eggs. So like I know when I was a kid, whenever I read a book, I would go in and I would scour each
yeah,
page and kind of look at everything and look at every minute detail that I could. Sometimes I would even try to draw stuff that I would see in books that I liked. So I always thought, okay, if I were a kid now, I want to give something for those kids who, when they read a book, they just like to devour each page and try to see what else is in there. And so I throw little Easter eggs in a lot of my books so that way it keeps the kids interested in, looking at it and studying, that they're going to find something that they didn't notice before
were,
by rereading or relooking at it.
when you were doing that, was it one though that like, again, this would be my fear of like, once you start to open that door.
Oh yeah, you have to
Yeah,
maintain it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's an expectation now. Like I remember when we did Jack and the Beanstalk, I told Josh I shot myself in the foot when I added all those characters.
yep.
And then now it was expected. So when we ended up doing, the Hansel and Gretel book, like that one was like, okay, now I have to keep it up. Like, because it wasn't just one main character now. I had two plus the witch. And so like there was other characters. Yeah. It's like he keeps building the cast.
It's
And so yeah.
it's a Pandora's box. It's a
Hmm.
you
It's a
you
fun
have to do it.
game. Like,
People want it, but man,
yeah.
oh man, I know that like there's some books that I do where I'm like, um, I hide little things in it, and then I for a few pages it's really fun, and then eventually it becomes tedious of how am I going to hide this in here? How am I going to put this little thing that like probably no one notices? But the blueprint thing is so nice because it essentially is the perfect thing for those people that want to um, reread
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
pages. And this is going to sound so weird to say this, but this is my first thought when I saw those. That's the part of the book wherein if the parent gets tired of reading the book for the 15th time, they can
Mm-hmm.
go, hey, find all these things in there. And the kid goes, okay,
Yeah.
I'll find them. And you can sort of like rest your eyes for a hot second while the kid's like intently looking through them.
Yeah, and like if the kids are not familiar with those fairy tales either, like the parent that gives the parent an opportunity to
Yeah.
introduce them to another fairy
Yeah.
tale.
Here's this thing that you don't know about, but check it out. This was my favorite when I was young,
Yeah.
or whatever it may be. Um,
Yeah.
is there an Easter egg that or a thing that you've hidden in there that you think no one would ever understand?
Oh, there's okay. So this one that we've had in interviews before. If you can find Tinkerbell in Jack and the Beanstalk in that first spread.
Okay. Yeah, something you gotta find. Like I have like dates of things that I put in. When I worked in animation, it was always this like, how do you hide someone's name in a scene? And so it'd be like a billboard in the background or those kind of odds and ends. But that idea of the something that only they would know.
Yeah.
But no, everybody else would just say, oh, it's just a person or it's just a name or whatever it may be.
Yeah. There is that shot right there, like the opening page of Jack and the Beanstalk. That kind of was the tone I wanted to set for the rest of the book series. It's like, can you find this one character? Like the Where's Waldo of fairy tales? Like, can you find all of these characters?
Is there like a response to that? Do you get people writing you saying like,
Yeah, like when they find Tinkerbell, like people are like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that. I didn't see Tinkerbell was right there." And it's like the most obvious spot. And so
is it I'm gonna have to go back and look because I don't know if I saw it before, but
that's everybody's homework. Find Tinkerbell in Jack and the Beanstalk.
I did a book about dinosaur, like it was called I Am a Saurus, and I made this. I don't remember what kind of dinosaur it is. All I can ever describe it to people as is the dinosaur that is in that spits and has the big frilly neck in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, the Jurassic Park. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
That's the only way I can describe it. And most people who have seen that movie go, "Oh, I know the one." But I did this book, and I hid one of those on every spread. And some of them are really obvious and not an issue. But the one thing that I have to tell every student or every like kid that I talk to about it is I accidentally forgot to put the eyes and nose on one of them in the book.
Oh no!
But what makes it really fun is then anytime I sign that book for anybody or do anything with that book, I get to say, I'm going to tell you a little secret. There's this one thing in this book that only you and I know. And then I draw the eyes and nose in because they're just little black dots.
Oh, that is hilarious.
So like they get to go to their parents and be like, oh, he put this thing in here and it becomes this.
Finished my book.
Yeah. Essentially, in front of them. Now, of course,
that's cute.
Not intentional. I didn't mean for that.
Yeah, no.
But, it happened one way or another.
But that gives the kid like a special moment. Like, oh wow.
Yeah, there's those little odds and ends of every book. Like I feel like there's something wrong in every book that I've worked on. And it's a matter of how can I turn it into a either a learning lesson or a moment.
Oh, believe me, I have those in my books too. Like there are things like oh man, I didn't catch that, or I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to point any attention to it.
Any of them you can admit on here?
Let's just say somehow some layers got turned off on certain spreads, and so there's parts either moved or shifted or missing.
Okay, that's the same. That's two of my books. It's a thing that got turned off and no one caught it, and then it's there, and it's not like major plot point or anything of the sort, but it's as the artist I see it every single time.
Yep.
And
it's something that you have to keep telling yourself. It's like you could forgive yourself for that one thing.
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard to let that go, and I don't think I ever probably will. Because it's just obvious, and it was like important to the plot originally, and didn't become as important later on. But I will say in one of the books I did, Dirt Cheap, which is one that I wrote, there is a sign that's in it that it's because the book's sort of about money and how money works and whatnot. And there's this important sign that she writes. And then on the next spread, that sign is missing the thing she
Oh
wrote.
no.
And it's not
Yeah.
like critical to the story. You don't need it on that page, but on the page before it was important. And so like the fact that it's missing, if you pay attention, it's gone. And it hurts. It hurts when I see it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know. I get that.
now that book never went to like a second printing, but if it did, that would be the first thing that I would say is like, let's fix that in the second printing. But it's not popular enough. It's already been, that book has gone out of print at this point. The pandemic killed it is what they told me. Maybe
there was a lot of those.
Maybe I did not put the words on that one sign, and then that killed it. But I think it probably was the pandemic. I'm gonna chalk it up to that at least at this point.
Yeah. The industry was really good right before the pandemic, and then once pandemic hit, it was kind of downhill from there.
I mean, I've definitely had a slow down. Well, I don't know. It depends. I feel like it's seasonal. I feel like there's times where it is slow, and then other times where I'm like, oh, it's I get a deal, and then I'm like, yay, it's not slow. But in reality, I don't think it will be as fast or exciting as it once was.
Yeah.
But I mean, the advantage, and it sounds like this is true for you too. It's like I'm not dependent on it right now. If I was, I'd probably be a little bit more scared. But I also think, and I don't know if you have the same opinion of, I think it's going to come back.
Yeah, it will. It will.
It's a matter of when.
Yeah. And
so, like, I always think of every industry within the art world as like sort of a pendulum. And, it's just a question of when does it swing back? I mean, even the animation and film industry has gone way.
I was gonna say, like, that's how it is right now in all entertainment industries. Like,
have you seen I mean, obviously you're working for a company, so they're sort of dependent on trying to get the deals together. But have you seen any sort of change there?
Yeah, I totally. There was a point where I was considering going back into animation, and then Netflix on the animation side closed that portion of their studio.
Yeah.
That kind of scared me. And I'm fortunate, like, games are doing really well right now. And so, but like other game studios, major ones, like AAA studios are closing.
Yep.
And so it's really scary. And to see so much talent out there that are like years out now that can't find work.
It's
those.
Oh, go ahead, please.
No, just those of us who are still employed. I'm just like, wow, I don't know how. I hope things change or pick up again. So it's like, I know several artists, friends of mine, are now working back in the service industry because they can't find any work. So
I have friends that are constantly like posting things that are like, hey, if you need a storyboard artist, here I am. I'm work. Yeah. Or what I've seen, especially on the teaching side, is a lot of students saying like, ooh, I really want to go into animation because I heard it's really good. Like the industry, and there's all these shows and whatnot. And then the cold reality of like, it is, but you're also coming into it at a time where things are slowing down, and you're fighting against people who have 20 years experience, and you're brand new to it. But at the same time, they also might bring something fresh and interesting. So
it's a gamble out there right now. Like, you don't never know like what they're going to be needing.
Yep.
I will say though, like, if you are going into the animation or the game industry, choose something very niche that's really needed. Like, UI artists are popular; those are always in demand. Technical artists.
Is there a skill that you see that like that maybe is less needed that you could pinpoint? Like
modelers. 3D modelers. There's too many. If you're gonna go into 3D modeling, you better be the best out there.
Yeah, just a flood market.
Yeah, like I think like a lot of the universities that have introduced that kind of the 3D visual effects or even animation into their programs, they're so heavy on those basics. Like everyone goes into try after they finish school, they go into those industries and they're already saturated. Like if you're gonna do something, you can either be a master of many skill sets or it'd be a generalist. So that way, if you go to a smaller studio, you can wear many hats. That makes you more valuable.
Yeah.
Like even for concept artists, like now, like in games, you need to be able to do everything. Like in animation, I know that they have everything separated. Like you're either only a character designer, or you're only a color artist, or you're only an environment designer or an environment painter. But like in games, you have to do all of it. Like there's no separation of duties.
Well, even in the animation, when I worked in animation, it was at a studio where you had to do all of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was also a small operation, and that's how they cut corners.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, the smaller studios,
yeah.
yeah. The bigger studios, like if you wanted to work at like Disney or Pixar or any of that, they're so
Yeah.
separated. Like it's almost like a detriment to the artists almost.
Do you find, I mean, the idea of sort of a flooded industry, do you think that is a bit of the challenge of kidlit right now? Or is that like I don't know if I have the answer to it, because I want to say
There's a lot, I think, in the kidlit that's beyond just the skill stuff. I think it's also where you're located, your standard of living. Like I think money has a huge part of it. Like for example, like if you can get a cheaper artist that lives in another country with a lower standard of living and pay them less instead of paying somebody in the US, a livable wage, they're going to go with the cheaper option. It's almost like outsourcing for studios. Like, it's great to have some in-house artists, but then bulk of the work, they'll take it to a studio outside to another country and have them do it for way cheaper.
it's
I kind of
things where like with books, like obviously the pandemic and supply chain and all that kind of stuff really affected some of those books early on. But I wonder, because and before the pandemic, I heard that kidlit sort of had it was in its second golden age. Is the way that I heard it phrased. And then like, obviously a lot of people jumped into it because they're like, hey, wow, this is really doing well, and I hear I can get gigs. And then all of a sudden it's a question of, has it become flooded again? Or is it, has it fallen prey to that same sort of aspect? But I also know there's a lot of other factors there too, like, stories have to be good. Not everybody's going to have a book that's going to sell, and whether it's good or not. And so I don't.
And there's also a lot of politics involved in just publishing in general. Yeah. It's like, I know what I did. I was working on a book in Scholastic, and they changed like leadership during the time I was working on a book, and the series I was working on got cut because the new leadership didn't feel like it was the right direction, even though the books were doing really well.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that. I've heard of the like when one of the things that's popped up on the writing side in particular is like an editor leaves a project halfway through. Like it's like, I really love this, I bought it, and then they leave, and then all of a sudden there's a new editor put on on that job, and they're not as excited about whatever it may be. Like it's not gonna rise to the top of their to-do list
priorities.
And like that's really challenging. By the time it gets to the artist, most of the time that's already been solved. But
unless you're in the middle of working on it.
There can be all sorts of challenges there. Let's put it that way. Is there
I hope I'm not being like a doubter. I feel like I'm giving like lots of scary, like, oh, beware, buyer beware.
Well, I mean, there is a reality to it though of I think I would rather, as a if I were a new artist coming out in this industry or anything of the sort, I would rather know about what has the potential of becoming something that I need to be concerned with versus not knowing at all.
And a lot of it I learned on job. So it's like, these are things I didn't anticipate would happen that I learned as I was going to. So
it's a question of like, I don't want to scare people to death in situations like this, or students, but at the same time, I want them to know the signs of what to look out for, and hopefully make it so they're not afraid or not scared in the end. Like I had a big conversation about AI the other day with a class.
Oh, that was something I was hoping you were going to talk about.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Let's dive in.
go ahead. No. Go ahead and finish your
Oh, I was
story.
just saying, like, I understand that there's a lot of concern there amongst, all sorts of crowds of how AI is going to affect people. And I think I wanted students to have context of what has happened in the past, how things have changed, how laws were enacted, et cetera. And not saying that that's going to be the answer in this situation. Like, not everything's going to run as smoothly or the same way that it did before.
Yeah.
But I want them to know that, like, there may be options for light at the end of the tunnel, and that if they really like pay attention, that they can avoid some of the pitfalls. But they can't just sit back and go, "Oh, everything's going to be okay." So what were you going to say?
Because we don't know.
Because your industry gets hit harder right now probably than any the sort of visual effects side.
Yeah.
So
It's like it's worrisome where AI is right now, because there's really not any answers on what it's going to do to us as artists. Like, we know from just how things have come out, like, it obviously is stealing from us, and we have no power over that. We don't have any ownership over our own art. That's why I kind of stopped posting like original artwork, is because I was worried that all I was doing was feeding into their algorithm, and there was no protection for me in terms of like what I'm producing is going to, granted, I'm not the most popular artist, and like I'm probably just being overly paranoid to some people, but like it does worry me, like the idea that something is using our art without our permission. But again, I do know that it is also, it has the potential to being, again, another tool in our tool belt if we can somehow establish some sort of rules and boundaries on like how it can be used.
that's the kicker.
Yeah.
Can we set it up in a way like we were talking about different laws being enacted, and like the thing that in the world of publishing, I've said this on here before, it doesn't scare me as much because the publisher more than likely doesn't want to get involved in something they don't have the copyright to.
Well, that brings a whole legal aspect to it that they are quite aware of. Yeah, that's why they're steering clear away from it at all, for all costs.
Well,
Because what if it does become a legal problem?
That doesn't mean that everybody follows that same understanding, and nor does that mean that every publisher has the moral
fortitude
to say that.
Yeah, because they are corporations, and they are only interested in the bottom line.
But my hope is that there are some things like that will get solved, especially if there's court cases or things along that line that will somehow resolve some of those questions or some of the
and a lot of those businesses are going to have to take a gamble. Like those rules or any future laws that get established can potentially ruin a lot of them. So are they willing to do it? Some are not worried about it for the long haul, which, is bad business practice, but they have that prerogative. It does worry me.
I wonder, or one of the things that came up the other day in class, we were talking about like who's worried about it, who's not worried about it. And I may be a little less worried than others in this situation. And I was saying, like, here's the reason why I'm a little less worried. And I don't think this justifies everybody's situation, but I also know that the work that I'm making is not always the type of thing that everybody wants.
Yeah.
And one of the students said to me, they're like, "Yeah, your stuff is something that is not going to be everybody's cup of tea," or I forget what they said, but it was like they were trying to say it in a nice way. But they effectively were saying, like, aesthetically, your stuff is not something that people are going to go, "I'm going to print that out and put it up on my wall in my house." And
people can essentially do that now anyways, but like it's making money off of it. That's the problem.
And so like I'm not as concerned about that end of it because it's sort of highly specialized, or it's got an aesthetic that not everybody gravitates towards. But I also know that, like, as a moral compass, I don't know if I want to live in a world uh, where just because I don't get hit by that it's okay that this happens, or that that I play by different rules than other people. I want to make sure that whatever is happening in this benefits all artists, and so I'm worried about the the like longevity of how long this lasts.
Yeah.
But I do think, and you grew up in the same era wherein you must remember stock art.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
that was a huge threat, and it's still out
Yeah.
there, but it is the pizzazz of it wore off.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It is not
Yeah.
the same that it once was, and I hope that we get to a point where AI, even if it's still up and running, does not have the same excitement or the same draw.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, we can kind of tell when something is
Oh
AI,
yeah,
and so it is, it does have its own look to it. So if people are going to start seeing it all the time and everything, they're going to start to realize,
like
oh, it's stock art for now,
what it,
for the now time.
students the other day, I was like, make your work so tangential, and like AI tries to grab the most general, like the most appealing thing that's out there, or the most like it pulls from the popular stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and I said to him, like, make your work unpopular, and I don't mean it's bad, but
Make it ugly but
yeah,
cool.
make it something that it it is not in the zeitgeist of what everybody is doing, and then you're going to be less likely, at least, to have it be scraped in the same way. That doesn't mean that it's that I want you to make ugly work, but it just means that you got to be, mindful of what the popular look is of the day versus the what do I want to say, like the sort of niche element.
Well, I think like people should just stay away from whatever's popular to
Yeah.
begin with. Like if you're wanting to make yourself a name, you need to do something different from what's already been done. And like it's great to be inspired, but do something else.
Yeah, don't be a follower.
Yeah, if you want studios or publishers to come for you and ask to work on projects, you have to be different. They're not going to want another Mary Blair. Like there's so many artists that are great at copying the Mary Blair look, but come on, like
we need
have your own unique voice. Do something different.
Yeah, and that's that. I mean, I tend to get in this mindset of just like make the work that's naturally me, and hope that in the long run it sort of not necessarily pans out, but that over time the popularity of that look becomes maybe more recognizable, but not necessarily the zeitgeist, like the most important look of the day. You're right, that Mary Blair thing, like there is a, whether it be Mary Blair or it be there's a couple other artists that come to mind where it's like you can just spot that people are doing the exact same aesthetic, like the faces show up sort of looking the same, or the approach sort of stands out. And so when you get someone who does something that's wildly different, everybody gets very excited because it's new and inviting versus being the follower of sorts. Does the gaming industry or the the industry that the visual effects side of things, does that follow any sort of like trends in the same way, or does
I think so.
project?
I almost kind of feel like it's more on the tech side. Like, are you using some new tool or new, program? Like, I know Blender is really popular right now, and everybody's learning Blender. Probably more because it's a free program versus Maya, where now you have to pay for a subscription, like Photoshop. And it's kind of like how people are going to Procreate instead of going to Photoshop because it's free. It's basically now become a game of like what cool program out there is, undermining the big company that could do basically the same thing, but like of course everything is, you have to use it differently. It's like But I think that's more of like what visual effects are now, because we've pushed it so far. It's a matter of like what kind of tools are out there that can make it easier for people, or I don't know. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's the truth, but to me, it's more about.
We'll take it as the industry standard fact that your opinion is perfect and no one else has any other opinion that's worth it.
I don't. That's his mind.
Yeah. Uh, it's interesting because like there are like visual effects that like feel. I mean, especially if we look at something like CG in general, or CGI rather, that people you can spot like a certain era or a certain vibe to it, where you're like, oh, this is early 2000s, or this is something that you would have seen in the 80s or whatever it may be. And it's funny that it really is something that has become calling cards or visual aesthetics that everybody just understands without even questioning. Like, there's it's fad like, let's put it that way. Are there, when thinking about style just in general, I want to sort of broach the subject of the style that you have and how that sort of came to be. Are there things that influenced you early on that have sort of sprung up? Is there something that you cognitively try to put into your work? Where does it all come from?
That's a hard thing. Like, I think style itself is not, the word itself is kind of a hard thing to even, like, I don't know if it's a style thing. I think every artist brings in their own influences, whether it's other artists or their own life experiences or places that they grew up or their culture, or history. I think for me, it's an amalgamation of a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know. I think for me, I do have a love of children's books as a kid, but then I was also influenced by comic books or in film and games. And like, I try to put all of that together. I think that's probably why I can shift between industries so well, is because I'm mindful of all of those things. I don't know. It's hard to explain. A lot of the techniques I use has been from just trial and error or studying other artists' work. Like if I like on Instagram or Tumblr, I don't know, people still use Tumblr. I kind of still do. Pinterest.
I don't know, people still like Friendster or just dated yourself real hard.
But I do, like, I have reference folders of artists that I admire and I love, and I try to pick and choose what are the things that I find successful in their work and how can I incorporate it into mine.
But there's also a limit to like a threshold where
I don't
and
copy.
Not yours.
Yes, I do not copy. Like, I can. It's good to be influenced. Like I told you, like Genevieve's work, good to be influenced and inspired, but do not copy. Like, you could take an element of whether or not it's the shape language or her use of texture or her use of space. All those design principles, when you break it down, you can easily figure out for each artist, what are their strengths? What do they omit? What is not a priority for them? And what from those would you like to pull and put into your design? Aesthetics. I wouldn't say style. I would say aesthetics.
Yeah, I've been using the word voice.
Yeah. So aesthetic, voice, same thing. But it's not. I feel style is like, that's something more relevant to a project. This is the style of the project.
That's true. That's that way. The style I always think of as being very superficial. It's
an easy way of people trying to communicate, what we're talking about, where it's your voice or your aesthetics or what jives with you.
It's the surface level of what I was saying to the students the other day was skim coat. It's the skim coat you put on top of something, but the actual like foundation underneath is what's more important in those situations.
Yeah.
Is there are there things that you sort of inherently think are your style, though? Or I shouldn't say, okay, I just said the word. Are there things that are inherently your aesthetic or your voice that you go like, this is the thing I'm really good at, or this is the thing that's my calling card?
I think it's not so much it's not a technique. Think it's more of a feeling. I like to make my art feel joyful or happy or bring a smile to someone's face when they see it. I think that's ultimately the goal I like to do with my art.
Okay.
It's not so much of like a technique that I'm using. It's more of the feeling that I'm trying to give. And a lot of people have said to me, like, when they see stuff of mine, it brings them joy or makes them happy. And that's kind of what I hope people feel. Because when I'm making my stuff, I feel happy. Like, as I'm painting this scarecrow, I'm smiling because, you know, he looks happy even though he's stuck up on a wooden stick. Like, as you know, he's a scarecrow. But I don't know. I guess that's more, I don't know, me, I guess.
No, but
the one thing.
I get the gist, though, of just like the thing that is, again, it's the content, or it's the gut reaction in a way that's the important thing. Like for me, it's less about sort of a style and more about like, is it funny? Like, does it make me laugh is the thing that is the most important element of what I do. And if it doesn't make me laugh, well, then it surely isn't going to make someone else laugh. And so, and it may not.
What's the feel? It's the feeling that you're trying to give, or you,
And so it's a matter of like, can I hit the thing that's important to me? And if I can, then great. Then I've solved the equation, basically. Is there are there artists that are outside of the sort of commercial realm that you lean on? Like, I mean, obviously everybody has an interest in like some like historical aspect, but are there artists that you look at and you're like, oh, this person's doing something really wild that has added some spice in your life?
I don't know. Like current artists?
Current artists, or like just like as an example, when I think of artists that I love, there most of the time it's going to be current stuff.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, there's some artists that like I really love, and this is going to be a weird one for anybody that doesn't know who this is. Sir Lawrence Alma Tadema.
Oh, I've never heard of
like
him.
He was an old romantic or he was of the romantic. Why am I drawing a blank on how to say this? The romantic.
Rococo.
Yeah, so it was like
Baroque Rococo, is it? Oh, was it?
And
oh, yeah. I took, well, so that was the one class I took for art history in college was Baroque Rococo. And because I liked that lavish style too, it's almost kind of gaudy. I know what you're talking about.
So like, to me, that's something that like, does it show up in my work all the time? No. Does it show up in my work?
No.
Oh, probably not.
Yeah.
But it's this thing that like, yeah, I could look at that for a long time because those are just cool paintings in general. Or, and then there's some artists like, you know, that everybody would love, and I immediately go like, no, not my thing. But are there ones that you sort of you immediately go, oh, this was an artist that sort of like always piqued your interest just in general?
You know, it's funny. I took Baroque Rococo. I liked Dutch painters like Johannes Vermeer. I kind of liked the dramatic light and shadows of that kind of painting style. I don't know if you're familiar with Dutch painters. Yeah. So I do like the is that chiaroscuro? No, that's not chiaroscuro. Is it the
like is that coming out of the darkness, or is that
yeah. So
wait,
I love the dramatic lighting and shadows.
Chiaroscuro, and then there's one that's about like the positioning of the feet. That's like,
I don't know that one.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think that's the light and shadow one though, like coming out of the darkness.
Yeah, I've always loved that kind of the Dutch painter style. And I think like besides the Baroque Rococo, the extravagance and the elegance and all of that, like I like the dramatic.
I like the way that you said Rococo is
Baroque
yeah.
Rococo.
You learned a lot in that class.
Yeah, I did.
You learned how to say
Had a-
cool.
I had to write a lot of paper in that class.
Are you someone that likes art history?
Are
Are you one of those weird?
Kind. No, I wasn't like one of those kids in art school, but like I had appreciation for it. Like at the time when you're going through school, you don't really give a care,
No.
right? But then when you're actually doing art, then you start to like, oh yeah, like I really should have paid more attention to all that information.
I definitely like. I was one of those kids that we had this the way that it operated at the school I was at. You had sorry, I'm looking for a paint color here real quick. There it is. You had to memorize the dates for the work.
Oh,
and
yeah, we had flashcards.
Well, yeah, you'd find techniques to make that a little bit easier on you, but also, like nowadays with some of the art history classes that are like, at least at my school, they're just sort of like, okay, as long as you get within a certain time frame, like if you're within a certain amount of years, like you have to be within 100 years of when or what, like that kind of variable.
Oh.
Like, no, we never had that. It was
no
date, and that's that. The problem is I was really good with sort of photographic memory, so I could remember my notes and where they were and sort of deduce this is this date, this is this date because of the memory of that notes that I had taken. But once I forgot that note sheet, all of it's gone. And so like I don't remember any of the dates. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I know some of the stuff of like, oh, no, I can't really tell you dates. I was trying to pick up something like Mondrian. Like, could I give you any sense of when that's from? Not at all.
No
clue. And it's a little sad in that sense, but at the same time, like, I
think it's also different when you're learning it in a classroom versus if you saw it in real life. I think there might be a different appreciation if you actually saw it in its natural habitat versus just sitting in the classroom having an instructor kind of tell you about it. So it's like, yeah, I think there might be a difference in that at least.
My mom. Oh no, I did it wrong.
What?
I meant to say my wife. Oh no.
Oh. Freudian slip.
Yeah. No one. I shouldn't have even revealed that. But my wife.
I'm sure she's gonna talk to you about that later.
Oh, yuck. I mean, my mother is a lovely person, but not marriage material. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But my wife is the Dutch masters, so she is as well a Dutch fanatic of some. Yeah. I know she loves like Dutch still lives were sort of her jam of sorts. I'm trying to think if there's like a historical era that I was like, oh, that's my thing. I can't really think of no. Maybe again the like pre-Raphaelite sort of range, but that's about it. Okay, I have to ask this question because you deal with the gaming community and whatnot. Are there games that you like in particular? Not just the one you work on.
So no. I wouldn't. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty like I don't have a lot of free time, and so like if I'm gonna do something, it's like in nature or
you get away
out
from
of public. But when I do play, and like everyone keeps asking me, like if I had to play a game over and over again, what would it be? And I know people are probably like, ugh, they're gonna roll their eyes. The new Zelda games, like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, I've beaten both of those games, but I'll still play them just so I can ride my horses.
It's like those people that play Red Dead Redemption 2. Just so they can fish.
Yeah, people tell me all the time, you need to really play Red Dead Redemption. If you like Zelda, you're going to like Red Dead Redemption. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But like, I can ride my horse in Hyrule. But yeah.
I've gotten and this is, I mean, you'll probably know this one too, but just recently I saw a trailer for a new game that's coming out, but it's not a new game. It's an old game. It's the new Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4.
Oh,
and
oh my God.
I was of the era where that was like, I spent hours.
That was your jam when you were a kid?
Yeah, and so like seeing that trailer when they first put up that trailer, I was like very, very giddy. Like this is it. This is my calling.
That's so
I can
funny.
do this. And so that's my like, but it's the same sentiment though of just like, I can just skate around and be sort of frivolous and dumb and not actually do the thing that it's asking me to do, because there's so much memory or so much like enjoyment in the little things that happen in it, or the minutia of it. That's what that.
Yeah.
Is there?
I'm very much into like games where I feel relaxed, because quite often during the day I'm so stressed out. By the time that I want to play a game, I just want it to be relaxing.
I have gotten to the point. I was talking to my brother the other day, and he's someone who likes those like run and shoot games kind of situation, and he was asking me about games that do I have any games that I'd recommend him? And honestly, the only games that came to mind were games that I like now. And my rule of thumb is I need to be able to put in a certain amount of time into it. Like I'm old, where I'm like, I don't want a game that's going to be so fast that very shortly after I start it, I'm done with it, and then I feel like I've lost a bunch of money.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that kicker is like, if I can spend 100 hours playing the game, well, that's probably a game I want to play. And it's a cost effectiveness choice, which is kind of a sad way to look at video games or to look at entertainment, but
that's what it comes down to. It's like you want to get the best value for your buck right there. And so like, I don't know, I understand that. Like if you want to buy a game, it better be something that you can keep playing over and over again.
And there are a few games that I can play. The Assassin's Creed games, I can play them over and over, just because they're just like, you got to go do this one thing and just do it and you're good.
Yeah.
Or the skateboarding is like, just keep skating around and collect these things, and it's brainless.
Yep.
I've not played the Zelda game that you're talking about, the Breath of the Wild, but I've heard.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no. Well, I don't.
You need to.
I don't have a Nintendo
Switch.
I'm a PlayStation person.
You can get both. There's not like a rule that you can't play both.
Well, there probably is in this household. If I get it, then my son has access to it.
Oh, that's true.
And so, like, there's if I want to bear the wrath of my wife, then I will not purchase that. Yes, I had to make sure I said it right this time. She won't stop me from getting it, but she would roll her eyes, I'm sure. I mean, I do have a Wii, an old Wii.
You still have a Wii?
I still have an Xbox 360. I have a Wii. I just found out I had a PlayStation 3 the other day. I was going through this.
Are you serious?
I was going through this. My son's friend just got a PlayStation 4, like handed down to him. And so we were looking through the PlayStation 4 games that I had, and I did not realize that in the cabinet with the PlayStation 4 is also a PlayStation 3. And I got very excited at that moment because there was a game that's on the PlayStation 3 that I was like, oh, I got to play this again. And I still haven't, but I need to at some point. But yeah, there's old stuff lying around.
Well, maybe you have a Switch and you just don't know it yet.
Yeah, there's part of me secretly that my son has asked, like, can he get a Switch? And there's part of me that secretly is like, if you get one, I'm playing that thing. Like that's you're not allowed to have it unless I get to play around and mess with it a little. But he already has enough screen time. So, do you have kids of any sort? I don't. Sort. That's a weird.
Yeah, we don't have kids. We just have dogs.
What kind of dogs do you got?
I have two Dachshunds, two Frenchies, and a Shih Tzu.
Now, wait a second. You said dash hound, not dachshund?
Dachshunds, Doxies, Dachshunds, Dachshunds. Potato.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You can't.
That's like pecan and pecan. You can say it in two different ways.
I mean, one of them's right, and the other one's wrong. Okay. What are the names?
But you understood though, so
I did.
they're.
It took a second, but I did. What are the names?
So the Dachshunds are Gretel and Moo, like Moo Cow, and then the Frenchies is Ripley and Rocket, and the Shih Tzu is Goblin.
How many dogs total?
I have 5. I just recently lost one, and so I had a pack of 6, but now I've got down to 5.
So do you spend most of your day cleaning up turds out of the yard?
That is one of my morning chores.
That would be the thing, like that. A huge pack of dogs would worry me about that. There is some. We have 2 little like Chihuahua mixes, and there is some dude on the internet who has I want to say like he's got to be a rescue or something of the sort. He runs a rescue, not he is a rescue. But at the place there is must be like 50 to 60 little Chihuahua mixes, and it looks so fun, and I would love to be in that environment just because of the amount of dogs that are like in this guy's vision at all times. And that idea of like having a huge amount of dogs, immediately I'm like, sounds really fun, but then the first thought I have always is just like, you got to clean up after them. I don't know if I have the patience.
Yeah, but it's like children. You still have to clean up after children, right?
Yeah, I guess. You're right. And
I think
children pick their nose and fart in your face. So dogs. Well, I guess dogs probably do some of that too, in some sense. But
yeah, they do.
Is that
No, the dogs are great because they kind of keep me on a routine. So it's like, I need to take a break because I need to take them out. So it does force me to get up out of my seats. So
wait, out of your seats?
Out of my seats, my chair.
I know, but you said it like you have multiple.
I have there's a couch, so there's a chair. So I'm not sitting down all day.
Yeah. No,
it does. Yeah.
I get it. It threw me when you said seats because I'm like, are you like splitting your time or you're spreading your wealth in multiple locations there?
Because if I'm not moving around, I'm sitting. So I do a lot of sitting.
It was just a word choice. It was a word choice. With those dachshund. Oh, how did you say?
I call them dachshunds, but they're all dachshunds and doxies and wiener dogs. And
are they challenging dogs? Because I've heard that like sometimes they can be like have a little bit of an attitude, just like our Chihuahuas. Yes, they have an attitude.
Yeah, they have a personality, definitely. They are more demanding, I think, the Frenchies are pretty demanding too. I think they made the Dachshunds are a little bit more forceful, I think, in demanding attention.
That's the German side popping out. That's the screaming. I saw this meme, and you can maybe verify this. But I saw this meme, and they were going around a veterinary office, and they were asking all the employees there, what's the one breed they would not own? And they all said Frenchies. And I didn't know what that meant.
It's they constantly have to go see a vet, so the vet bills are always expensive.
Really? Yeah, is that what it is? Just
like well, my Frenchies have allergies, and so I have to go get them shots every 2 months, and those aren't cheap either. And so I know why people are like, don't get a Frenchie unless you're willing to spend money.
What allergies do they have?
Like mine have allergies. It's so weird. I don't know. I can't believe we're talking about this. Chicken. They're allergic to poultry, and it's not so much the meat itself; it's what they feed the chickens. You know, like when we get food from the grocery store, they feed them like, generic corn meals and stuff like that, and like nothing really healthy unless you get like farm raised chicken, which who can afford that. Um, but yeah, I think it has to do something with the food that they feed the poultry, which causes an allergic reaction to the Frenchies. Um, they also have seasonal
Wait,
allergies, but like,
both of your Frenchies have the same allergy.
yeah.
Weird.
So every 2 months I have to go and get them shots, and they're not, again, it's not cheap, so it does add up. If 6 months out of the year where I have to go take them and get shots, so it does add up after time. So any of you who are looking to get Frenchies, get pet insurance. Yeah, but they're worth it. I love my Frenchies. They're sweet dogs.
Frenchie, I was for a long time. That was the dog of choice. That was the one that I wanted to get, and then, but I'm also like, we're at the point where we're just gonna go get whatever dogs are available wherever. Like I'm not gonna drive across the country to find the specific dog anymore. Not my. We get them all from the south. Not all. We only have two, but we got our cats and our dogs from the south, so they come up with little accents.
Oh,
I got southern
little twang in the meow.
Little southern drawl. And all the things they say.
They're gonna play a banjo for you.
Well, it depends on what area of the South. They're from one's from Louisiana and one's from Alabama.
Okay, so one plays an accordion, the other one plays a banjo.
What's those?
The washboard.
The other one's a banjo, or like a bass drum that's just a wash basin with
That's funny.
A string and a stick.
So that you can make some money off of that.
Is there with having those critters, and I know you said like you're surprised we're talking about this. I want to talk about anything, so it doesn't matter. But
well, I also have chickens, by the way.
So you're not even being affected by those egg prices.
Well, my ladies are too old to be laying anymore. We're incubating right now a new flock. So on my dining table, I've got an incubator with 12 new eggs. So hopefully they work out.
I just had a dream last night that my dad came into town and bought us 6 chicks.
Oh, did you really?
I don't know.
There must be some sort of dream diary for that.
Yeah, there's some meaning about like life in there somewhere, but yeah, 6 chicks.
Or you're very affected by the egg price.
No. It's honestly, that is one of those things. I bet you a lot more people are going to start, because of how much it's in the news. They're going to start having chickens, not having chickens, but raising chickens themselves.
Well, I live in an HOA, so I don't think a lot of people will be able to do that. Luckily, when we built under, there was a Farmstead Act before the HOA was established, so we were signed on under that. So that's how we were able to get around it. But like, yeah, well, we didn't cheat. We just got here early enough before the HOA could take control. But yeah, I wish people had more, to be able to raise their own chickens, although I don't know how it could get kind of a problematic thing. People have a hard time maintaining their own yards, so I don't know if they can also raise chickens.
I'm glad we don't live in an area where we have an HOA, or at least that I know of. They haven't hit us with anything yet, but just everything I see about those seems like it's such a pain.
Yeah. There are benefits and there's disadvantages. There are a lot of disadvantages.
I mean, I imagine the area that you're in probably looks lovely because of an HOA, because there's like...
Well, I don't know about that.
What? What was that?
I don't know about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a part of having an HOA. Is sometimes they do their job, sometimes they don't.
I was just figuring it was like all the yards are kept up well because you have to, or you get in trouble. But around these parts, I would like to not have to deal with the yard at all.
Yeah.
That way. With I forget what I was saying now. I just totally lost it. Doesn't matter. I've been watching you go along here and draw this out. You said this was a golden book.
Yeah, this one, yeah, it was this image that I was working from.
The one that's on the left there?
Yeah.
It's just
You see it?
I can't quite see. Okay, gotcha. Did you ever, there was I forget where it was, that I got a request at one point that must have been around, I don't know, 6 years back, maybe 7 years back, that was a celebration of golden books where they were looking for people for an auction. They were asking a bunch of kidlit illustrators to do their version of a golden book.
Oh, okay.
And then they auctioned them off. And I remember I did one. I'm trying to remember what it was I did. I remember it had a rabbit and it was the scrawny tawny lion, I think I did.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
classic,
I remember that one.
Classic
yeah.
image. Or
was it something, did you choose that or did they
I think
assign that to you?
Choose. I don't remember.
Oh, was there like a significance for choosing that one?
No, I wanted to draw a lion if I remember correctly. That was about it. I don't play by anybody else's rules anymore.
Oh, I didn't know if there was like a emotional significance behind it.
No, nothing of the sort. We do have some like collections of like some golden books here now. So there's some that like are really fun that I have now, but there was nothing that when I was like a kid. In fact, I don't remember most of the books from when I was a kid, beyond like a handful.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a kid that read a lot when you were little, or was that?
Yeah. I like to read. I frequented the library a lot during the summer. I was kind of that kind of kid.
Did you do one of those things where you had to like, can you read a certain amount of books this summer kind of situation?
Yeah, like I was very determined, like because they always sent you like a list or like a tracking sheet to see like what you've read over the summer, and I would always try to make sure I would fill those things up.
Were you well, okay, so you like to read now too?
Yeah, every now and then it's I think it's harder for me now because the only times when I'm free to read is at night, and then usually I get really sleepy when I read, so I don't get very far anymore.
Yeah, you've spent yourself during the day. What kind of book are we reading when you can read?
Well, I've been jumping between, of course, 2 Stephen King books. I've been reading The Talisman and Fairy Tale. Those are the 2 that I've been jumping between. I was reading The Talisman because you know how Stranger Things, they ended the last season with Lucas reading it to Max. And I was like, oh, that has to be some significance. So I wanted to read it to make sure if it was something important for the last season.
I guess to be honest, I don't remember that part, but I also, all I remember about that is just D&D. That's all.
Oh.
It's, my son is now into D&D, and so like, that's about my capacity for
nerdness.
Yeah, no, I'm a cool kid. Yeah, I don't. No way, I don't do lame stuff.
Yeah, embrace your inner nerd.
No, we D&D now with our son. He's running a campaign for us.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very very
like is that like a family thing?
Yeah,
or
us and a friend of ours who said they were willing to do it sits in and he runs it with the 3 of us playing, and it's very cute because he got very into it. We initially said we were going to do it, and then all of a sudden he was like, he is a kid who does not like to write all that much. Yeah. And then when it came to coming up with this D&D campaign, he was like writing and really cared a lot about what he was providing in the situation. And I just found out he does he goes to the library every week. And of course he goes to the library not to read books. He goes to they have a D&D club.
That's cute.
So I found out tonight that at the D&D club, the guy who runs it, the librarian guy there, said, "Does anybody want to run a campaign, like be the dungeon master?" And my son was like, "Yes, I want to." And so he stepped in as the dungeon master for it, and it's pretty adorable that like
that's cool
to that length of helping out the person who runs it. Um, I just realized I just cut something horribly wrong, and I got to do it over. Um,
Um,
the is there, when you say nerd stuff, do you consider yourself a nerd?
I think so. Like, I think I was very much interested in not the cool stuff when I was a kid. So, like, comic books weren't really popular. I was into video games. A lot of the kids growing up were like into sports. So, I was more, I'd rather be drawing or reading than to be, going to a football game or, all that other stuff that kids were interested in.
All the things that cool kids like me were doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the kids. Well, not saying that I didn't play sports. I did play sports because it was my dad, was very he stressed the importance of making sure that we were playing a type of sport of some
Yeah.
sort. But like it wasn't something that consumed my life. Like I did like entertainment and I liked, playing video games and reading. So
What sport did you do?
I did swimming and diving.
Ooh,
I wanted a non-contact sport. I didn't want to get hurt.
that's a good choice, though. I like swimming and diving. Swimming is one of those things that, like, if I had access to swim in my own pool in my own backyard, I will stress that, where I didn't have to like make an effort to go lots of places. Like there was a time where my parents lived in Texas, and they had it as a lot of places in Texas or a lot of towns. There's people have pools everywhere because of the heat. So like
Yeah.
during the summer when I'd come back from college, I was like swimming every day. And for a redhead like me to end up with a tan like that
Oh.
summer meant that I was outside quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely sort of like relaxing. Now, when you were doing this swimming, were you like competitive with the stuff?
No, it was more of a social thing for me. I was okay. I wasn't the best and I wasn't the worst, but it wasn't like I wasn't determined to make some Olympic
Yeah.
team or I wasn't dying to get a Letterman's jacket for swimming. It's funny enough, I got my Letterman jacket for Business Professionals of America. I was doing computer aided graphic design. What's that?
You never got beat up again after that.
No. No, I think some friends of people from high school who have talked to me now, a lot of people always thought that I was kind of like that cool artsy kid, like I was too cool for everybody, so I kind of kept on my own. So everyone always thought that I was like the cool artsy kid. But
yesterday I was doing, so I went and visited a high school and did that little workshop, and then for the college that I work at, they ask us every once in a while to help out with like college fairs, and we go and talk about the school and whatnot. And so I was in this giant gymnasium with like 200 other colleges trying to talk to students who were interested. And the guy behind me was from this really like high-end technology school, and I'm there as this representative of an art school. And we started trying to predict who would come over to our various tables because we were sort of niche schools compared to some of the other stuff that was there. And there was all these kids walking by with their parents, and there was this like group of high school kids that all were wearing like baseball uniforms, like they had just come from practice or a game or something of the sort. The guy behind me goes, "You probably don't need to worry about those guys." And I was like, no, we don't have anything to worry about there. They're not coming my way at all. And then you could spot the art kids like from a mile away with their like crazy colored hair and all the things that are like indicators clearly of an art student.
You beat to the beat of your own drum.
Yes, exactly. And so it was funny to try to predict sort of who was coming each direction. Like he was from some school that had a very, very like competitive high, like everybody's GPA must be through the roof for the school that he was representing. And so he would sit there and he could spot his kids. We were saying kids from a mile away as well, just because they had a certain look to them of some sort. With when you went to school, you said you did all those. What was it? It was chemistry. Wait.
Yeah, I was. I had interned in high school for 3 chemical plants my senior year, and so I took advanced placement chemistry. That was the only science that I really liked. And so like trying to figure out what to do for a career path, like art wasn't really something I thought you could do for a living. And so where we lived in Corpus Christi at the time, and there were like chemical plants down there. And so I thought, okay, I could always go to school for chemistry and get a degree and work at one of the chemical plants because they pay well, you know, all that stuff. And so as I was going through the program for chemical engineering for like chemistry, didn't like it like the other classes. I loved chemistry itself. I hated the math classes. Like a lot of that stuff, I was like, why do I need to learn this? But I was taking art classes at the same time because I had gotten so many scholarships through art that I had to maintain them. So I had to make sure I was doing art classes too. But then I was finding that I was having more fun in the art classes than I was in my own actual major classes. So then I switched majors. And then while I was in school, I had to take a psychology class, and it was so much fun. And the teacher told me, like, he said to me after the class ended, he was like, you should consider, you know, pursuing psychology because you seem to understand it quite well and you get a knack for it. And so I was like, yeah, I guess I could. And he was like, weren't you a chemistry major too? I was like, yeah. He's like, so you must have a lot of those classes already out of the way. You just have to take some classes that are focused on psychology to fulfill the degree requirements. And that's what I did. So like not all of those classes I took for chemistry went to waste. I was able to use that for psychology. So
I
double majored.
do you still do any chemistry now?
No, I don't.
Sitting in your
No.
blowing stuff up? Nothing
No.
fun?
No.
The psychology thing, I have decided that if I were to ever go back to school for something, it would be for like psychology or therapy or something of that sort, because I just love, part of it is I love gossip. And so part of it is I just want to hear gossip from people. Tell me what's going on in your life. But there is part of me that just really is fascinated by the way that like people's brains work in those situations. And, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable, like, if you can see a therapist, I think it's important. Like, I have a therapist, and because I knew from going to school the importance of having, you know, that kind of support system. Especially, I wish it was more, you know, available for more artists, because I feel like a lot of us would benefit from it.
Yeah.
But like just people in general, I wish that more people were more mindful about that kind of stuff. And so I don't know, maybe, yeah, I had thought I would go into art therapy, but there was no programs in the area that taught it. I would have to have moved up north somewhere to pursue that further. But my partner, the reason why I was thinking about doing art therapy was my partner, he's in theater, and so he was doing theater drama therapy at several of the hospitals in the area, like Cook's Children's Hospital. And I had sat in on some of the sessions with him and the therapist and the kids, and it was just heartbreaking. Oh. Like the stories of a lot of these kids coming from broken homes and, you know, the health issues that they're having to deal with. And I kind of realized at that moment, I was like, yeah, I don't think I have the capacity to take on other people's problems like that.
One of the things that I've always had an interest in, and I don't think I could ever do it as well in the same sort of sentiment that you're talking about, is I've always had a idea to do some sort of art related thing with the children's hospitals.
Yeah.
Of just like, oh, it'd be so cool to take our art and do something that is positive for kids that are like essentially living in hospitals. Mm-hmm. But I also know at the same time, mentally, I don't think
it's hard.
I don't think I'd be able to, like, the tax on my emotional state would be so high in that situation that I just don't know if I could like bear it. And I know it's probably very selfish and whatnot of me to go like, oh, that's too hard for me to deal with the situations. But
I don't think that is. I think it's like you understand maybe that there's more to it than just showing up. You're gonna leave with a lot of that baggage.
Yeah, but I you know, these kids are going through horrible things, and here I am going like, oh, it's really tough on me and having to deal with this. I'd rather just stay home.
Yeah.
But at some point it would be lovely to do that, that side of it, and sort of, almost like the art therapy thing. But I think I'd have to figure out a way to decompress before I actually start that process, because I know once you start it, it's hard to sort of like, it'd be hard to backtrack and say, hey, I need to slow down on this or whatnot. Like, I need to have a plan, essentially, if I want to that sort. But at some point, maybe in the future, that will become a thing that I can participate in of some sort. They have this.
Yeah, that would be cool.
They have this lovely thing that they did at, I forget where it was. I want to say it was down in Providence, wherein they had artists from the local schools, the local art schools, so basically RISD at the time. They would come together, and they would, little kids could bring their stuffed animals to this park, and the illustrators would all draw their stuffed animals for them.
Oh, that's cute.
Super cute idea. And I was thinking, like, okay, that's the kind of thing, like, could I do something like that in those sort of hospital situations? But again, it's I don't think that would work perfectly in that same exact thing, nor do I want to steal someone else's vibe. But like, how do I do something of that sort in the future is sort of the hope.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know. That got real dark all of a sudden talking about kids with like medical problems.
Yeah.
Okay. On a lighter note, what's your favorite cereal? No. Try to figure out some like fun.
That's easy. That's Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. I can't eat it anymore because it's like awful on my stomach. But yeah, that was my favorite.
Why that? Why cinnamon?
I don't know. I liked. It's the only cereal that I liked. It even if it's soggy, it's still good.
Okay.
What about you? What's your favorite cereal?
That's a tough one. Now, this one probably is like not the most exciting one.
Okay.
But I really do love Special K's Chocolate Delight.
That is actually really good.
I don't even think it's real chocolate. It's something else.
Oh, yeah.
But it is good. And then I'm a Lucky Charms.
Yeah, I like Lucky Charms too.
It's hard to say that that's not a fun cereal, but I'm trying to think if there's something else. I feel like there probably is something else that's in the like that aisle that I would go like, oh, that's the one. But it's definitely not. What was that? What's the one where it was like a wheat biscuit thing that had?
Oh, I know what
you had to
like
break
about.
it up in your cereal. Ugh,
yeah,
that's disgusting.
Frosted mini wheats or mini or wheat? Mini wheats.
But there was like the big wheat one.
Like,
you get one of those per bowl. Like those are gross. Grape nuts, I'll pass.
Those hurt my teeth.
I have a sweet tooth, so basically, give me anything that's sweet, and I'm in good shape. But cinnamon Toast Crunch is good.
It's okay if it's not your jam.
It's good. I'll buy it. My son will eat it. It's one of those cereals though that like I feel like I can eat it for a box, and then I wouldn't necessarily need another box of it. Whereas
no, that's one. If I could probably eat the entire box if I wanted.
See,
that's how dangerous that
Lucky
is.
Charms, I think I could eat a box and then eat another box and then eat another box and eat another box and not have an issue. But okay, that was a great break from talking about child issues. I'm trying to think if there's like another fun, like quick thing I can throw out that's in that same vein of like, okay, what's your favorite? This. Ooh, okay.
Anyone?
I have two questions I can ask. I've asked people in the past.
Okay.
One, if you had to go live on a desert island and you could only bring one food with you and one food alone, you're not allowed to have a cheese platter. You know what I mean? Like you have to like a cheese or something of the sort. What would you bring with you? Because you're not going to have anything else ever again. Is that one food? What is it?
Okay, so question for this. Now, this said food, could it does it always have to be something, can it be something that I prepare but I just have it? Like it's like, for example, like spaghetti. If I wanted a plate of spaghetti, can I always have
Yes.
spaghetti? Okay. Fried chicken.
Hey, you use spaghetti and you jump to fried chicken. Why?
Yeah, I just like fried chicken. I love fried chicken.
It's
Um
your own
I don't
fried
know.
chicken or fried chicken from a specific place?
I feel like people would judge me if I chose a specific place. I don't. Okay, this is probably not the best or healthiest, but if I could have whatever I wanted and it wouldn't cause any health problems, Popeyes fried
Okay.
chicken.
I don't think I've ever had fried chicken.
Are you serious? Wait, don't they have
They
them up
do. I
north?
just never have had it. I think
Yeah.
where they did not have it, and then it was KFC or nothing kind of situation, and then
Yeah,
up here,
I
I
can get
don't
that.
really eat fried chicken all that much. I'd eat the biscuits.
I don't eat fried chicken a lot either because I have stomach issues whenever I eat that. But like, if I could eat anything and have no problems, it would probably be fried chicken.
Okay, I get it. I'm a burrito. Give me a nice burrito, and I will eat that any day of the week without issue.
Do they have good Mexican food up where you're at?
They do in certain locations, yes,
Okay.
but it is rare. You know,
Okay.
after being down in Texas and going to some of the places down there, and then coming up here, no, they don't. But like, there's a place at my school that has like true Mexican food with like, cow tongue and
Oh,
like
okay.
real straight up Mexican food.
Okay.
Not Tex-Mex of any sort. And so there is stuff, but it's so rare. And especially where I live, there's basically nothing because we're up in New Hampshire versus away from like a bigger city like Boston kind of situation.
Yeah.
But any sort of burrito aspect thing, I am game. In fact, last night when I was out doing those events, I had to stop and get dinner on the road. And I stopped at a place that I got a pizza at one place, and then I saw right afterwards there was a burrito place right next door, and I missed it, and I was angry at myself. I could have gotten a burrito, and I didn't. Okay, here's the other question I ask people a lot.
Okay.
Have you met anybody famous, or who is the most famous person you met?
I haven't really met anyone super famous. Like, what do you mean, like in passing or just like in a conversation?
We'll say in passing, like saw on the road, or you've seen
BB Newirth.
Wait, who's BB? I know the name. Who's BB Newirth? Why?
You remember Frasier?
Oh
His
yeah, yeah.
wife? Yeah, I met her. She told me I was super cute.
Now we're getting to the gossip. Let's go.
Yeah. No, she said I was very cute, and so I thought it was pretty funny. I was like, wait, you're BB Newirth, right? And she was like, yeah, I am. I was like, I just want to tell you, you're a wonderful actress. And she was like, and you are a very cute boy. And I was like, oh.
Wait, how old were you?
I was 20, 22, 23.
Okay, so you weren't little kid.
I was a baby.
Yeah.
I was still kind of a baby.
I met her, and she said I was very cute. I was 2. Like that.
No, I was 35.
That's a name where like you say it, and immediately I'm like, I know the name, I know the person, but I never would have connected. Like if I saw her in person, I wouldn't just go like, oh, that's BB Newirth. Yeah. I would say that lady from Cheers.
Like I've seen celebrities, but I haven't. She's the only one that I actually had talked to, and it wasn't really a conversation. It was just kind of like a hi, hello, and goodbye. And so I've seen celebrities like Jack Black in public, in person, and then I've seen what is this the singer from Fleetwood Mac?
Starts with an N? No.
Stevie Nicks. Yeah, I've seen her at the Dallas airport once.
It's gonna be sad.
So,
When I said it starts with an N, the first name that came to my mind was Nick Nolte. I knew that's not who you were talking about.
as soon as you said N, I was like, now I remember.
Who's
Yeah.
that person from the Fleetwood Mac? Nick Nolte? Yes. And is there anybody that that you actually like beyond just the hey, you're cute? I like how that's the story you chose, just so you could like throw that.
Well,
in.
no, that was like no, because that was the only time I really had said anything to a celebrity. Whenever I see a celebrity, my instant reaction is to just leave them alone. I'm like, oh, I'm sure that they freaking tired of people coming up to them and bothering them. So I'm like, I'm gonna respect it and leave them alone.
My dad, because of his career when he was or when I was younger, he worked for a company called CVN, which you know what QVC is, right?
Yeah, so yeah.
CVN was like the equivalent, but people don't know it as much for whatever reason. But he knew all these folks because he would like they'd come to do a segment on their network, and so my dad would meet them, and so like he met Cliff from Cheers. I think he went out to dinner with him. He went out.
Really?
He went out to dinner with Pete Rose.
Oh yeah, I remember Pete
so like
Rose.
I had a baseball signed when I was younger. I thought baseball was like it was my comics where it's like I collected it because I thought it would be worth something, not because
same.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with
like
baseball
I don't
cards. Yeah.
care about it, but I still have these. I have a signature that had he dated it, it probably would have been worth something. It was a ball that he signed the night that he got indicted for the sports betting thing. He got
I don't remember that.
And then who else did he meet? He worked with Mike Rowe from what's that called? Dirty Jobs, for whatever reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he had these like weird like he knew this person from this thing and this person from this other thing and so like he has this strange history with that kind of stuff. But I'm trying to think if there's one major famous person that I met and I didn't meet him. Wait, how do I put this? My wife will probably correct me on this. I did not meet him. I stood in front of him. My cousin got married in Vegas. We were going to take photos like after the wedding party business, and we were standing in front of this like beautiful little garden thing that was in the Wynn Hotel, and all of a sudden we hear this person behind us go like, "Go ahead and take the picture," like sort of jokingly, and I turned around and Tom Hanks and his son were there behind us.
Oh my God.
Then they ended up taking photos with my cousin who was getting married. Like he has wedding photos with him, with Tom Hanks. And I think it was Colin Hanks. It may be the other Chet Hanks or whatever the other one is.
That is
and so like
too funny.
There's a photo of me standing in front of, or just behind Tom Hanks. And like, that's the closest I ever got to fame of some sort, I think.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't get called cute or anything, so
that would have been funny if Tom Hanks said that you were cute. So, hold on one sec, okay, Mark. I'll be right back. Hold on one sec.
So anyways, how's everybody doing? How's it going up there, Lauren? So, I hear you back? Nope. Okay.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm here.
Say, if I could ever, and I don't know if I have the ability to do this right now, but it'd be so funny if I sent you later a shirt that said "Baby New Earth thought I was cute." You could, like wear around.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Well, I have a witness. My partner actually saw it happen, so it was pretty
Now,
funny.
if you were to get a shirt that said BB Newirth thought I was cute, would you actually wear it?
When I wear it, okay, sure. If you take the time to have it made, I'll wear it for you.
I just like it would be so funny to have that, and people would be like, "Okay, what is this?
It's funny. Yeah.
Who is this?" There'd be all these kids like, "I don't know what that is," but
They're like,
yeah,
who the hell is BB Newirth? People watching right now Googling. And then she's going to be like wondering, like, why is my name like trending
I got
right
a
now?
Google alert saying that my name is like on the top of the list.
Okay, people, make it happen. Make the internet work. She probably would have never remembered it.
For all you know, maybe it was she's out there on a podcast right now talking about there was one time where I saw this really, really good guy, and it's a lost connection.
I think she was more thinking that I was cute because I was kind of fangirling in front of her, so it was kind of funny. But yeah, I don't know if it was physically she thought I was cute, but yeah.
Just roll with it. Roll with it. Don't let
Yeah. I'm not going to sell that because I'm afraid that it's going to come bite me in the butt later.
She's gonna send her people after you.
Yeah.
I heard you were around saying
we heard that BB Newirth sexually harassed you.
TMZ's calling. Yeah.
When did this happen? Limits of what is it?
Statute of limitations.
Yeah. Statute of limitations.
That'd be so just the idea of her people calling out you, like you need to stop this, cease and desist.
Yeah, you need to stop talking about BB Newirth.
I bet there's probably not been a conversation that has featured her name this heavily. I mean, her career might be lovely, but I have a feeling that this may be the extent of it for a long time.
That's funny.
Is there we were comparing ages at one point. So you said you're 40s. Mm-hmm. Are you mid 40s, yeah. Low 40s? Where
I'm 44.
44?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You haven't even hit.
I got into the industry really late. I think when I finished grad school, I was already like 30, like 29 or 30. So I was a late bloomer on this part.
You haven't even hit 45 yet. That's where it all goes downhill.
No, don't say that.
It
already feels like it's all going downhill already. So
I had someone tell me, we were talking about ages the other day, and he said, he's like, we're the same age, right? And I said,
you're like, sure.
And he said, like, you're probably like 33 like me. And I'm like, nope.
No.
He was like, oh, you look good for your. I'm like, dude, I have gray hair in my beard. I am not 33 at this point. Like, I have hip problems. I have foods I can't eat after 8 kind of situation.
Yep.
And so he mentioned that, and then I was telling him about there was a point where my doctor, I think I was either 40 or 35, I can't remember, but my doctor pulled me aside and said, like, this is the point in your life where you either go downhill or you maintain.
Yeah.
Like, there was no uphill mention. There was no like, oh, this is going to be a wonderful life from now on of any sort. It was, you're either going downhill or you maintain, and that's that.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, your 40s are going to be the best time in your entire life. No.
Well, it's going to be, it's just sad. The rest of your life's going to be sad, dude. That's basically what he should have said.
Yeah, it's like at this point, it's like, so what can I not do anymore?
Part of it is I have trouble putting on my socks right now.
Oh, I have a thing where I can't eat certain foods anymore. And so it's like, go ahead.
What's the food? Is it?
So I can't, so I found out, so I have to avoid foods that are inflammatory. So I can't eat tomatoes. I can't have beef. I can't have corn. Yeah, I can't have anything with corn in it. What else? I can't have fried foods that are fried in seed oils. So I can only have things that are fried like in avocado oil or extra virgin olive oil. Yeah, it's like ridiculous, like how everything has become even more restricting. So
So that fried chicken really is out the door.
I yeah, I can't eat fried chicken
You,
because yeah, that could potentially hurt me, but
it could potentially hurt me. I think that
it could potentially be
yeah,
hurt.
it's been known to kill.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that gets me is like uh, oil is challenging, but I also think that like onions and that kind of stuff, feel
Oh
it.
yeah.
You feel it afterwards. It's not horrible, but like I'm at a point where like you know you got to question a little bit. Like, is it worth having a lot of that on something?
Yeah.
Garlic, those kinds of things. Like, yeah.
Oh, you can't even have garlic
No, I
either?
can. I just like
Oh.
it ravages the old tum tum.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because garlic is supposed to be anti-inflammatory
No,
too.
it it upsets things.
Oh, that sucks.
That's a nice polite way of saying it. This is called old people talk.
Yeah. You have now entered
Yeah.
into this era.
I joke with people saying all the time that like the older you get, you just talk about like medical problems.
Well, and that's also probably a subject that you should bring up, like in your talks too. It's like because we sit all day, there are lots of health issues that we develop, and because we lead pretty much a sedentary
What you
lifestyle,
got?
if you think about it.
What you fighting with today?
Yeah, like what health problem do you have? That's usually the conversation most artists have.
Have you had carpal tunnel?
No, knock on
Yep.
wood. Like, hope that never happens. I'm always afraid of anything that's going to restrict my ability to
Yep.
draw. So injuries to my hand or my eyes.
Yep.
Like those are
I've had
the things I'm worried about the
games
most.
where my hand gets hurt, and then it's like, what do you do? I was telling students at one point. I was talking about that same basic principle, and I was saying like Chuck Close. I brought up Chuck Close as you know Chuck Close, right? The portrait artist who used to do these like super highly rendered drawings, and then he essentially lost. He became paraplegic over what it was. He had to learn to draw with his mouth.
Wow.
And so, I mean, he got really good at it, but it was definitely a different aesthetic that came out of it.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of thing is like, yeah, that does not sound fun of any sort for me. I don't want to get to that point. But yeah, we got frozen shoulders. We got leg sciatic issues. All the fun ones. What you got?
Yeah, I got a gastrointestinal disease.
Because of sitting the whole time?
Yeah, from being sedentary. And so I developed a disease called diverticular disease, and it's a gastrointestinal disease, and it's normal for people in their 70s and 80s. Like everybody gets them when we get old. So it has to do with our colons, and what happens with diverticular disease is that you develop these little pouches that pop out of your colon, and they create these little bumps essentially. And what happens is, like, you know, when you digest food, you know what it becomes at the end, that stuff gets stuck in those little pouches and then starts to become infected, and those can cause problems. And so I actually developed diverticular disease because I found out I had diverticulitis, which is the inflammation of those pockets.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was because I wasn't exercising. I was eating really bad foods, low fiber foods. And so, like, I even tell all my coworkers, especially the younger juniors that we hire on to the team, like, you need to make sure you diet and exercise, and because these are things that happen to you as you get older. Like, I didn't realize it, and it's caused by the Western diet, essentially, like eating fast food, high processed foods.
How come I don't have it yet?
Well, you're lucky. Some people, it's funny, a lot of people end up having diverticuli. Those are those little pouches in your sigmoid colon, but you don't ever get the symptoms of diverticulitis. I just happen to have experienced like early onset of a diverticular breakout, and I was able to go and see a doctor to get medication for it before it became worse. But there are people who like they think the pain isn't anything and they escalate it to the point where they end up having to have surgery and get portions of their colon removed. So it's scary. Like so when
I know what the second shirt is I'm gonna say.
No, my partner got me Christmas pillows that say diverticulitis sucks. I was like,
I was gonna say BB
that's
Newer
not
was
cool.
cute, but she didn't know I had diverticular.
That's funny. Yeah. BB Newer thinks I'm cute, but my diverticulitis
Says
doesn't.
otherwise.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's yeah. I unfortunately got a gastrointestinal disease, but a lot of it can be caught on early as long as like people are eating healthy and are eating high fiber foods and are exercising.
my
There was just
go ahead, please.
no. It was just like during that time when I was first starting to work on children's books, I literally was working all the time and I didn't ever go at exercise. I would be sitting for hours on end. And so like that was something I should have paid attention to.
I just did an appointment for getting in this for anybody who's watching this going like, I thought this was art talk. No.
Is everyone still there?
No, there's people.
Okay. Oh, cool.
My wife hates when I talk about this because I don't know why she 100%, but I think it's funny or I think it's hilarious kind of because of the name of it. But I have to go get an MRI to see there's a hip issue that I have where my hip is really like inflexible right now and painful at times. And so the doctor was, at first I thought it was just like a frozen hip because I've had frozen shoulder. I was like, oh, it's sort of the same thing, I assume. And then his first question to me was, have you had steroids recently? Yeah, I know.
What?
I'm like, where's he going with this thing? And then he said that there's sometimes rare instances where the hip can be affected by the use of steroids. Now, I'm not using steroids to bulk up, but I did have steroids for a tonsillitis.
Oh.
And he goes, okay, we got to rule it out. So we're going to have you get an MRI. And so I was like, what is he talking about? Like, what is this? Having steroids for like tonsillitis is somehow going to makes my hip inflexible. And so I looked it up, and it's this thing called AVN. And I don't remember what the A and the V are, but the last one is necrosis. It's like arterial vascular necrosis. And then the thing that in parentheses behind it said bone death.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's funny. My wife, but it's essentially that.
I'm with your wife on that one. That's scary.
It's not a big deal. Like the worst case scenario is you have to have a hip replacement, but most of the time, like way less than that, especially if they catch it early. But it's the idea that the blood vessels going to the end of the bone stop. Like the blood isn't getting to the end of the bone, so the bone isn't getting growth and starts to die in that on the end where it meets the hip. And so, like, worst case scenario, you go get a hip replacement, but there's all sorts of treatments to try to fight it. But my guess is that's not what it is. But just the fact, like, bone death sounds like this cool, like, metal band. It's like that I absolutely love. And so to me, it's humorous, but I think it's maybe a scary phrase to her. Hopefully she's not upstairs grumbling at the fact that I brought up bone death again. But anyways,
funny.
Yeah, bone death. You can get me a shirt that says BB North didn't mention how I was. Probably because I have bone death. Is there I need to keep an eye on time. We're getting close. We only have
is that I should probably start wrapping up soon. Oh, that's too bad. I'm having fun.
No, this is great. I'm not trying to kick you off. I just realized like eventually it does cut us off, so I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of it. No, this has been fun. Like I at the beginning of the evening of every one of these evenings, it starts out with this like, okay, tell me about your life, tell me about your career, and at the end we start talking about BB New Earth and all the aches and pains. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out if there's something else I want to put in. I feel like it needs something else somewhere, and I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know. Well, I'll play around with this here real quick and see if I can find some. Is there projects on the horizon that you want people to know about?
Not really, not personal projects. I'm currently working on the Squid Game Unleashed game for Netflix. So like people are playing, if they do play video games, like that's available. If you have Netflix subscriptions, you can play that on your phone or on like your iPad. I don't really have any personal
What
stuff going on at the moment
what
though.
did you actually do?
I designed levels and I designed characters and costumes and yeah, I did pretty much a lot of the art stuff.
So
So
is your name like high up in the credits on that one?
I don't know if it's high up, but I'm at least in the
Okay.
concept artist list. So
Um, and then is there have, I didn't even ask this, and I don't know why I didn't ask this. Have you ever considered writing your own books?
that is something that I've been wanting to do. Like I've talked to Josh about it a lot and trying to get his feedback on stuff like that. He totally said like if I ever had something that he would read it. A lot of the publishers I have worked on, they have all optioned and asked if I ever did have a book idea that to pass it over to them. It's just like the daunting choice of what you want to do for that first book.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? It kind of sets the tone for like what you want to do going forward. And so like trying to choose what that story that you want to tell
Sort of.
first, it's a little overwhelming. Yeah, it's scary, but at the same time exciting. But then like, what do I do? Because there's so many possibilities.
We
Like I literally have like post-it notes of all these ideas that I've had for children's books that I wanted to sit down and write. But it's just like, which one do I start with?
we what was I gonna say? Shoot, I just lost it. I don't know. It was something about specifically like the first choice of the book, or
Yeah,
which book. The idea of sort of the setting the tone of that expectation of like, oh, you make this book now. This is the only type of book that we want from you.
yeah,
Is a sort of strange thing that does happen in kidlit.
yeah.
Like my first book that I wrote was a 2-book deal, and after that first book came out, there was a strange pressure to like live up to the what happened on the first one, and it's it can be a little challenging, but at the same time, like the second book that I did was not. It was in a similar vein, but definitely like there was a little bit more freedom, and I was trying to write the same type of book, and I really should have been writing something different from the beginning because I was trying to live up to this like that same sentiment of like, well, I got to match what I did before, and once I
Yeah.
stopped trying to do that, it made it a little bit easier. Um,
Or like if I start doing like a funny kids book, like am I going to be expected from now on to just write funny stories? Like it's kind of it is a little weird like how you if I don't know.
I mean, my agent has told me like funny sells. That's the thing. Is like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you can do the funny thing, do the funny thing. The hard part is like I don't want to tell the same jokes. Like my first book was all puns, and it's
Yeah.
like I don't want to be puns for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I want to find like I want to do nuance, and one of the things I wrote recently is really like the best way I can describe it is super subtle humor, like
Mhm.
extremely subtle, and I don't know if everybody will get it, but it is not something where someone would go like, oh, this is the same person that wrote these puns in their first book, uh,
Yeah.
and trying to live up to that sort of like um, live up to what people are expecting or live up to that notion of like uh, maintenance of
Yeah.
what I do. So uh,
Yeah, and in the same vein, I just don't want to go off and do something too serious. You know what I mean? It's like this balancing act of like, what's the
yep, no,
tone? So
it's weird. I don't. I always feel weird saying that stuff because it's like it's totally true. But at the same time, I also every time I say stuff like that, I'm like, there's someone out there working in a coal mine who's like, wow, wow.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like,
I
different kind
know
of
these are
situation.
our problems.
No, but it truly is like a weird like issue of trying to figure out like how to navigate that like expectation of sorts as you go along. Let me. I want to keep an eye on time. Yeah. Okay, we're good. We still have a few minutes. I will say, because I know that we are hitting that time frame. I want to make sure that I stress
Yeah.
that I have had a lovely time chatting with you, and
Thanks, Mark.
thoroughly enjoyed the evening. I say it quite often, and it holds true almost every single time, and it did this time for sure. That at the beginning of the night, I'm always kind of like, oh man, this is going to be a long night because it's always 4 hours. And it's not because of the artist, but more so just like the day that I had before.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get taxed. And
No,
sitting
yeah, I
down
totally understand.
and having this conversation, at first, it's always this like, okay, how do I maintain a conversation? And then someone like you comes on and makes it very easy to.
I'm glad.
This
To be honest, I was nervous. I haven't done an interview or anything like this in a long time, so it's kind of like, how is this gonna go?
You did it. You told us.
I did it.
Told us about your intestinal sacs. So you really.
Be sure, kids, to make sure you have your fiber.
I don't know if that's the right phrasing. Your intestinal, but like that's where we go. That's there's got to be someone who like is listening right now who is very excited that is how this is just going to wrap up. Kind of is talking about intestinal sacs. There's always a what is that what is that thing that's like every if you can think of it, there's a website of nastiness related to it. That same. Same out there.
Yeah.
There's someone out there who is really interested in not in that way, but in that you just have to find the right audience for it. So
yeah. That's
what was it called?
The
There we go.
diverticulitis?
Thank you. What I'm saying.
Google it, kids.
Google it and watch out. Yeah. Don't get bone death.
Don't get bone death.
Anyway.
Stay away from steroids.
Yeah. It's going to be frustrating if that's what did it. And that's like just because I had a little thing of steroids for tonsillitis. Like something that like, could have been a different medicine they gave me and it would have not been an issue, but whatever. Anyways, not your concern, not my concern. I mean, it is my concern, but not in the same way. Anyways, I don't know. How are you doing on your image before we?
Oh, yeah. I still have a lot of work to do, but I did make some progress on it.
I'm watching I got a delayed feed, so I'm sort of waiting to see.
Okay.
As you look at it there. Yeah, you got a lot. We're going to get cut off, but I'm going to ask this question before we get cut off. How long does it take you to make a spread?
A couple days. Not too long.
You have to put in some time there, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of detail, so that's what takes the time.
That's like I work quicker than that, but I know that like there's some people who like put in like 60 hours, 120 hours on one single piece, and I don't have that kind of patience.
Yeah, it's the process. I think it's just because I have my stringent process that I have to always do. So
yeah. Well, okay. I'm gonna start to clean up some of my mess in the background. You know what? Here's what I'll do. My wife says her brother has diverticulitis.
Yeah.
Stomach sacs. I'm gonna switch back to a shot here, so we can wrap up on this. You don't have to do the same, but
okay.
I'm wrapping up this way so it looks nice and pretty. Oh, now you're gonna do the same, huh?
Yeah, I'll do.
Well, we'll see
the same.
We'll see that.
To honor BB Newer, so she can remember how cute I am.
She tunes in. She gets to see. She gets to get on behind me. So again, I thoroughly appreciate you taking the time tonight to chat with me and to make artwork. And one of the things I ask people at the end too is, if at any point you post what you make, just tag me in it because I'd love to see the finished work.
Will do.
I'll do the same.
Yeah, I will definitely do that.
You have a lovely evening. It's almost your.
You too, Mark. What's
that?
It's
almost your bedtime. It's almost 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it is almost bedtime. Yeah. Luckily, I ate before.
Go have a lovely evening, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks,
All right,
Mark.
bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, folks, real quick, I'm just going to wrap up on this one last statement. And I'll see if I can get this. Well, I'll see if I can get this all cleaned up real quick and show you what this sort of ended up as. I'm not super keen on it yet, but I like the story. I'm not sold on the image yet, so we'll get there eventually. Next week, or actually tomorrow, I'm going to be posting the next month of artists for Gabadoodle. We have some stellar names that are on that list. I will say that much, and I am not lying there. And very exciting. And we have, I think, about a month and a half left, and then all of a sudden we're going to switch to summer schedule. So we have all the way through April into about mid-May, and once we hit about mid-May, we're going to switch to summer hours. So if you're watching this from afar and it's in the middle of the night, and you go, "Oh man, I wish this was live," where I am, just hold on a few months, and all of a sudden it will be, and we'll be doing lots of stuff like that over the summer as well. One last thing I want to mention: this summer, I'm planning on doing some mentorships, as I've done in the past. In fact, I plan to do quite a few of them. So if you have interest, I know those people that I've talked to before who've had interest in that, and I was booked up or needed to plan out some money and whatnot to get that to happen. That will be announced probably in the coming month, so I can start scheduling that kind of stuff out with people, and I'll probably do a cycle of it, sessions. So there'll be like a early summer session, a mid session, and then a late summer session. And so just keep an eye out for those as you go along. Otherwise, I want everybody to have a lovely evening. I'm going to do one last thing, which I try to do at the end of these, which is to put this image on a nice, lovely... oh, you just got to see me bend down against the curtain. Whoa, fancy. I got this lovely blackboard. I want to put this on it and try to make a lovely, nice, clean shot of this image for my own purposes. So let me flip the camera real quick, and I'll show you the sketch that I had of this and sort of how it came out. Oh, you know what? There's one thing I forgot. I need to get in there. He needs to have his little... There's on the side. There we go. So this was the sketch that I had, so everybody can see it. Oh yes, for anybody that doesn't know what this is a guy named Feebleson, who is a tall tale from America, from the state of Nebraska. I believe around 1903, they made a bunch of newspaper articles that sort of mentioned his tale. And he was the idea was he was a peer of Paul Bunyan, and he was a Swedish man who came to town and fought drought and made clouds rain on the dry lands of Nebraska. And so some of the ways that he did that, one was he made a bunch of, he got a toad or a frog, it was a frog, I think, wet, and the frog started to croak, and he continued to do that until there were enough frogs that were croaking so much that they tricked the clouds, who heard the noise and thought it was thunder and thought they were supposed to be raining, and then they rained and got rid of the drought. But a couple of things that I thought were really fun was, one of them was that he had a horse that ate some cactus needles by accident, or a bit of cactus, and needles got into its digestive tract and would work their way out through the horse. And one of them worked its way out through the back of the horse, where Feebold would ride the horse, and poked him in the butt. And he didn't like it, so he decided he was going to make a new transportation device. So he got 2 hoop snakes and gave them moonshine. And the moonshine was so strong that he was able to manipulate them and turn them into bicycle wheels. He made them eat their own tails, and then they petrified from the whiskey or the moonshine or whatever it is. I don't know if moonshine's whiskey. And then he built a bicycle, or the first bicycle is what it said in the story, out of them. And so that's sort of the combination image here of him fighting the cloud, wrestling the cloud on his hoop snake bicycle with 2 dead snakes. And so that's the image that I made tonight. And there's only, I think we got like seconds left, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But that's the story tonight of Feebled Feebleson. Go look him up. There's other stories attached to him, quite a few, that you can go find on the internet. He's a little harder to find than some of the more classic ones, but he's a fun character. Plus his name. Anyways, y'all have a lovely evening. I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.